We sleep together? Su Xing's eyes rolled. Su Xing and Wu Xiao gazed at each other. The atmosphere was somewhat silent. Gong Sun Huang emerged from the star nest and sat on Su Xing's shoulders. Her body did not have any weight, and her gaze at the two people staring at each other was neither saddened nor delighted. However, there was a sort of feeling that she was watching a spectacle. I might as well sleep on the chair, and you sleep on the bed. Su Xing yawned. With regards to the heavens as a quilt and the earth as a mat, sleeping in a chair was a very high-grade joy. Wu Xiao agreed. She honestly did not have any reason to let a man sleep together with her. This simply was madness. Gong Sun Huang blinked and looked at Su Xing. Little Huang, go to the star nest to sleep, Su Xing said to her. Gong Sun Huang lightly kissed Su Xing's cheek. Like mist, her figure entered the star nest to concentrate fully on self-cultivation. The cool and elegant beauty undressed on the bed. Although they were separated by a hanging screen, the curves that the cloth vaguely showed nevertheless made him stir. Just as his beastly desires were about to be unleashed, Su Xing grabbed at his hair. He seized the chance to practice the absolute sincerity soul technique, for the Wu Xiao on the bed was not undressing at all. Rather, she had pulled her clothes tighter and crouched, leaned against the wall with her arms crossed over her chest, her two legs twisting. As far as Wu Xiao was concerned, sleeping in the same room as a man for the night was more inconceivable than signing a contract. Although she had the hanging screen as a partition, she still felt a sort of unprecedented odd unease. There was nothing ambiguous, only a moonlight calm as still waters passing through the windows and pouring out, covering the floor in white. He did not know how long had passed, but Su Xing opened his eyes, glanced at the bed and suddenly stepped several paces towards the window. He had been sharp as he passed through Red Cloud Mountain. Going past several winding corridors, past several courtyards, he then came to a back mountain. Red Cloud Mountain deserved to be called a precious place. The moonlight was abundant, he was carefree and relaxed. Sneak, still won't come out? Su Xing chuckled. A silhouette immediately walked out. The newcomer was an attractive man of sharp brows and starry eyes, red lips and white teeth. Long Outyen disdainfully smiled. Is your nose sharp? Is this your personal strength? I am a very democratic man. Su Xing yawned. You want to peep at my waifu, say it. It will be you castrating yourself. Or I can just take that dog life of yours. You, a galaxy early-stage cultivator, dares to be this arrogant? Long Hour Tian felt this was laughable to the extreme. His expression was even more incomparably detestable. What qualifications does your cultivation have that you should live so happily? This Long Outyen could not bear to see the Su Xing with a cultivation lower than his own by 2 levels to unexpectedly be able to have a galaxy late-stage beauty. You gigolo had best leave her if you have tact. I can settle you without using artifacts. Su Xing made hooked his lips into a disdainful smile. Arrogance must pay the price. Long Outyen shouted. Su Xing scratched his head. Was this guy hitting his own face? Long Outyen's figure moved, and his 2 fists combined. Since Su Xing declared his price of not using artifacts, Long Outyen naturally would not lower his own status. In actuality, he felt Su Xing had already dug his own grave. Previously, in order to be able to comparable to a star general, he had but cultivated close-quarters martial cultivation with all his might. It was unknown how many cultivators had perished in close quarters, and it was precisely because of this that Long Outyen would be this egotistical. With his galaxy late-stage cultivation against Su Xing's galaxy early stage, Long Outyen had already planned to cut his arms and legs completely off. At the very end, he would then sever that tongue. The moment Long Outyen acted, Su Xing could discern this guy still had some assets. However, arrogant people always had some assets. Even if it was this type of asset, it was unable to withstand a single blow. Then, I'll send you on a journey, Su Xing sneered as he charged forward. 2 figures tangled in a battle against each other on the back mountain. Although their cultivations were a little apart in comparison, these realms of cultivation were only a deceptive signboard as far as Su Xing was concerned. His star energy could be compared with a supercluster stage, and after Su Xing fought the fiery-eyed Swanenai, He currently worried about to what degree he could handle cultivators on his own. Now, someone had been delivered to his doorstep, so Su Xing naturally would not mind. The first time those two fists joined, Long Outyin had been repeatedly pushed back enough that he vomited blood. Su Xing's power could make this man feel his internal organs rupture. His face bled from its orifices, and Long Outyin thought he had seen wrong. He angrily roared, concentrating his star energy onto his fist. "I am going to trample you to death." Long Outyin's expression sunk, his pupils flashing a cold light. His arrogance had disappeared, there was only a fierce expression. A powerful star energy flew out of his body and stuck tightly onto him, as if mixing into a single body. It seemed this Long Outyin had practiced an odd cultivation method. Su Xing's front glowed, and he remained unruffled in the face of chaos. Boom! Bang! The back mountain's open space suddenly erupted with a large ball of wind pressure. Trees toppled and sand and stones rolled, for that wind pressure was like a hurricane that spun beside them. It covered the sky and earth as it pressed toward Su Xing. Long Outyin's pupils were thoroughly red in the night. Su Xing's figure abruptly disappeared. Long Outyin was stunned. He had yet to return to his senses, but then he saw Su Xing's figure was just like a phantom of the night, rapidly descending to his front. Long Outyin's arms suddenly protected his front, joined tightly together. Afterwards, he spread out his arms, and the shadow was completely dissipated from his surroundings. It was just that at this time, Su Xing's attack had arrived with a flurry of fists. Continuous banging sounds. His right hand's palm chop flashed like crescent moon as it passed, directly ripping apart Long Outyin's figure, mercilessly striking Long Outyin's chin. An immense and even terrifying power instantly erupted, striking Long Outyin's head fiercely backwards so that it faced upwards. Tears, snot and saliva instantly sprayed wildly, and that malevolent face contorted, an appearance of bleakness, misery and shock. In an instant, this galaxy late-stage man had tasted a sort of unprecedented fear. Furthermore, he immediately realized the man in front of him was also a martial cultivator. He had fallen into a trap. Su Xing did not pause whatsoever. He jumped, his body suddenly sliding up alongside Long Outyin's upward-facing head, rolling beautifully in midair. His other leg brought the sound of wind as it again mercilessly sliced against Long Outyin's body. The leftover strength had not yet faded. His arms and legs were like a windmill, carrying a terrifying sharp whistle that successively sliced the same position. The sharp ripping sound was just like a death god's sinister laughter. However, in that short instant, the shadows of his fists and legs surrounded Long Outyin's body, the movements wild and linked. Flowers of blood spattered, and his silhouette was already spun away. Relying on his galaxy late-stage star energy, the barely standing Long Outyin violently roared out a mouthful of dirty blood. However, in their brief face-to-face, the galaxy early-stage cultivator in front of him gave him a nearly fatal strike. His entire body from his internal organs already began to burst forth with huge wounds, just as if he was a complaining woman that had been struck 100 different ways. Impossible! How could a galaxy early-stage cultivator surprisingly be able to harm me? The Long Outyin, injured to a critical state, spoke incoherently. His body shook without stop as an intense pain engulfed his whole body. Anger ignited his will, and his eyes were already completely blood-red, just as if he had gone mad. His body suddenly soared. Although he had already lost the ability to speak, Long Outyin's actions nevertheless expressed his intense fury, as if he could not believe this fact. This was a matter that was barely an instant as he fiercely rushed at Su Xing. A frightening wind pressure showered down upon him. One hand seemingly became a sharp claw that hid the skies and covered the crazily pressed down, exceptionally vicious. The knight seemingly became his most sharp weapon, tearing towards Su Xing together. Su Xing fell back several steps. Seeing that Long Outyin's attack this time was simply leaving the door wide open, his right leg kicked, directly striking Long Outyin's stomach. Along with several of his ribs fracturing, Long Outyin opened his eyes wide as he was kicked to the ground. Cording, Long Outyin loudly yelled. He finally thought to use something, But how could Su Xing give him the chance? After he kicked him, Su Xing flashed past, directly brushing past Long Outyan. His hand already had a sharp blade. Long Outyan had only just said courting, but his next word came to an abrupt end. His neck had an additional line of blood as he immediately fell onto the ground and breathed his last. Su Xing coldly looked at this man of rampant name. Taking his astral bag, he took out several corpse-destroying talismans to eliminate his body. As far as this sort of man courting death that was sent to his doorstep was concerned, Su Xing would never be thankful for him. That last move just now was rather fierce, and I don't know what it was. Su Xing rummaged through Long Outyan's astral bag. The more he looked, the more he was astonished. As it turned out, this man was a thieving scum. The items inside his bag were innumerable, and their varieties were also myriad, having everything. An ordinary cultivator simply could not possibly bring this many varied things that he could not use at once. Having not used them, a bit of thought would reveal he had stolen them. This guy's death truly was a grievance. Su Xing clicked his tongue. Just artifacts alone, he had more than 40 or 50, and there were even several magic weapons, hundreds of bottles of pills, and talismans numbering more than 1,000. There was even a supreme-grade talisman, God Transformation Talisman. 3. Upon seeing this talisman, Su Xing felt that Long Outyan dying was very unresigned. It was not out of the question for this supreme-grade talisman to be able to handle supercluster cultivators. No wonder this Long Outyan was so unbridled. Artifacts, pills, talismans, materials, and more were all uncountable. However, Su Xing did not place the majority of them in his eyes. Actually, a secret text of a cultivation method made Su Xing feel very interested. The Nine Claws True Dragon art seemed to be that cultivation Long Outyan practiced. Su Xing looked over it, and it was incredible, as expected, a ruthless claw technique. Suddenly striking during close quarters, it could easily rip apart artifacts. If it was an unaware cultivator, he would have perhaps been easily beheaded. Su Xing could actually take it to practice it. Besides this, there was an introductory goo poison art, poison border goo art. 5. There would be help using it to research Gongsun Huang's goo poison art. After inspecting the entire contents of the astral bag, Su Xing also found a second ghost pearl. Su Xing discovered that this Long Outyan truly was fucking awesome. It was unknown how many cultivators he had killed, how many debts of blood from conspiracy to murder, but converting everything into gold, the value was more than 10 billion. As far as star cultivators were concerned, this absolutely was an astronomical figure. Just as Su Xing was about to leave, he suddenly spotted that at the place Long Outyan's corpse turned to ashes, there was an object that twinkled. Generally speaking, if the flying sword star cultivators nurtured were not used, they would be entirely destroyed alongside their owner. However, it seemed that this Long Outyan had seemingly left something behind, so Su Xing curiously walked over. That was a golden ring, with multiple talismans script sparkling, its luster lingering. Golden Immortal's linked life ring? 6. When Su Xing saw this item, he was startled. Astonishingly, this was the ranked 108th Hound Star Golden-Haired Hound Duan Jingzhu's 7. Destined Star Weapon. This guy unexpectedly disposed of a star general? Just as Su Xing was swearing at a faraway place, Wu Xiao opened her eyes, and her figure sunk into the dark night. The next day, Red Cloud Main Hall. Cultivators were jam-packed within, bustling about their respective business, without the drink and merriment of yesterday. There was now a sort of seriousness, as if facing a great enemy. Su Xing and Wu Xiao stayed far apart from the crowd. They leaned in front of a stone pillar, their cold eyes observing. Elder Sister Xiao, it seems you did not sleep well last night. Zheng Yanran wore that golden cup chrysanthemum dress, yawning. As far as star generals were concerned, things like sleep were not essential. It was just that staying in a room with a man for the first time made Wu Xiao appear comparatively worn out. Su Xing's energy, on the other hand, was exceptionally good. This guy was a person ready to adapt to the situation. His unexpectedly destroying that fraudulent Long Outyan last night made Su Xing receive a great bumper harvest. and he had forgotten about Wu Xiao's affairs. Now it seemed that Su Xing's great vitality and Wu Xiao's unbearable exhaustion made Fang Xianggu and Zheng Yanran show ambiguous yet knowing smiles. By Wu Xiao's personality, she naturally disdained to explain anything. Not long after, the noisy hall slowly went silent. Before the person even came, a powerful imposing aura made the entire hall's air seemingly freeze. Everyone was as if they had been stuffed in the mouths with something. They saw from the main hall's passage, 8 silhouettes slowly walked over. The posture of these men and women were superb, their temperaments extraordinary. Each and every movement had a sort of fearful pressure, and all the galaxy stage cultivators present tingled in the back, as if they were sitting on needles. These 8 people were, astonishingly, the ancestral masters of the Azure Dragon Territory's 10 great sects. Wu Xiao specifically glanced at Su Xing's reaction. The latter narrowed his eyes, a somewhat deep and immeasurable gaze. Such an incredible, imposing air. Are those the monster-level ancestral masters of the 10 great sects? Fang Xianggu swallowed. Among these 8, Su Xing was somewhat or very familiar with the True Immortals Hall's Xianjinzi, Lifeless Hall's Ancestor Longevity, and Gong Caiwei's Master, the Queen Lady of Ice. For the 4 others, besides the Red Lotus Fairy that he saw once at Long Blood Stronghold, there were 3 he was more unfamiliar with. That one with the green leaf robes is Taoist Master Qing Lian, the Tai Sword Sect's ancestral master. That is Ancestor Qianli of the Blooming Water Sword Sect, that is the Shifting Flower Sword Sect's Lingbo Fairy, and the Super Void Stage Envious of the East. Fang Xianggu introduced them in a low voice. Su Xing secretly nodded his head. These 8 had joined forces to chase him, but all of them gathering at once right now at Red Cloud Hall was actually somewhat strange. Holy Mother Qi Xia was also present. She waved her hand, and the hall's main doors were tightly shut. The multicolored lights vanished, and the air was heavy. The cultivators were in a fit of restlessness. I am envious of the East. Today's invitation here too is because I have something I wish to consult with everyone. That distinguished and elegant man, that giant among men, began to speak. Senior envious cultivation is exceptional. What can we juniors do? Only an outstanding talent could recognize current trends. 3. Everyone present were galaxy stage cultivators, having seen gales and billows. Seeing 8 great cultivators mobilize, their brief confusion immediately settled. The one who posed the question was a tough and stocky tall man, draped in a bear pelt vest. His forehead was full, his eyes were sharp, and he was at galaxy late stage. To be able to be the first to ask a question in the face of the pressure of 8 great cultivators, this made Su Xing unable to but take a closer look. Everyone here is but an elite of the Azure Dragon Territory. Envious of the East sat upon a jade chair, his hand rhythmically tapping. This is naturally so. How could the others dare say no when they saw this envious of the East's self-confident situation? Very good. Your servant has not made an error in judgment. Everyone is of a generation with great aspirations. Envious of the East smiled. May I ask just what matter Senior has? Is it the Purple Thunder Monster? A female cultivator courteously asked. Ancestor Qianli made a gloomy smile. That Purple Thunder Monster must die, without doubt, but this ancestor alone is sufficient to handle him. Why would we need to call upon you youngsters? The female cultivator went back in embarrassment. This situation is this. The Lingbo Fairy of the Shifting Flower Sword Sect wearing a blue long-skirted gown glanced at everyone. We have just learned that the 10,000-year Guj of Falling Dragon Mountain's Lady Snake Scorpion is already about to be born. What? The 10,000-year Gu? Is it truly the 10,000-year Gu? That is certainly a fearsome animal from prehistory. All of the cultivators erupted, each and everyone feeling alarm. A Gu of more than 1,000 years was a fearsome beast, and 5,000 years was an absolutely fearsome beast. 10,000 years? Perhaps transforming Star of Annihilation grade star cultivators would be forced to deliberate for a while. No wonder the 5 Poisons Mountain was that strict. This Lady Snake Scorpion's ambitions are truly not small. Su Xing clicked his tongue. Should she refine a 10,000-year Gu, the the star duels would be entirely in her control. Is there any way this is wrong? The previous big man said doubtfully. Could it be that you suspect we would deceive you juniors? Ancestor Qianli coldly smiled. His imposing air made the big man overflow with cold sweat. I do not dare. Since it is the 10,000-year Gu, just what can we do? A cultivator was confused. By the powers of the seniors, to kill the 10,000-year Gu still is not very easy, right? Everyone nodded in agreement. Holy Mother Qixia at this time said, by means of us 8, indeed we can break through, but that rock demon king planned 10 years ahead, laying down a forbid dance on 5 Poisons Mountain. These forbid dances and mechanisms are layered, and furthermore, the demi-soldiers and demi-kings of 5 Poisons Mountain are numerous. Relying solely on 8 cultivators is still somewhat weak. In order to prevent side issues from arising, that is why we need everyone to work together for a common purpose. Because the Rock Demon King was injured by my attack, this time is a great opportunity. Envious of the East faintly said. Hearing his words, everyone trembled. Su Xing felt this man was honestly shameless, unexpectedly saying it was he who inflicted the injuries. However, this formlessly gave all the cultivators present an increase in irresistible pressure. We are scattered stars that consider the whole world as home. I fear this sort of matter is difficult to undertake. Since this concerns the fate of the Azure Dragon territory, seniors' disciples, and that Emperor Liang will be more willing to fight than us scattered star cultivators. This sentence spoke out everyone's thoughts. That appearance clearly said, your fucking Azure Dragon territory has the millions of disciples of the famous 10 great sects, galaxy stages in the thousands, yet you seeking us scattered star cultivators clearly shows you have ill intentions. This is a choice for lack of a better option. To order our disciples to come now is too late. Secondly, it will cause alarm in the other 3 powers of the Vermilion Bird territory. If another Azure Dragon war were to erupt, could it be that everyone wishes to see that? Envious of the East downplayed things with a smile. He practically was the chief-like existence among the 8 great cultivators. The others said not a word, allowing Envious of the East to become the lead role for everyone present. Envious of the East's words had reason and justification, they were sincere and natural. Although everyone knew he more or less had evil designs, they nevertheless were incapable of refuting him. Everyone looked at each other, secretly regretting they had entered this feast at Hongmen. Those that are higher up are more likely to speak pretty words. Zheng Yanran giggled, somewhat disdainful. They obviously know the dangers of 5 Poisons Mountain and do not wish to let their own disciples suffer casualties. They want to send us scattered star cultivators to our deaths. Do not speak nonsense. Fang Exangu covered Zheng Yanran's mouth in fright. How do you see this? Wuxiao asked. What Zheng Yanran said was correct. Their sect's star masters have not appeared, so evidently, this 5 Poisons Mountain is absolutely deadly. Su Xing said. I actually want to see how he executes this. A moment later, Envious of the East rose, his figure just like a large mountain, and everyone went mute. The corner of Envious of the East's mouth was slightly scornful, coldly saying, as for the reason why we have appeared, everyone presumably knows that we have also come for that purple thunder monster. With the Azure Dragon territory currently at stake, we 8 are even willing to give up on the purple thunder monster. Could it be that everyone refuses to face reality? In reality, everyone need not be too anxious. 5 Poisons Mountain has several forbid dance arrays that require everyone to go break. As for destroying the 10,000-year Gu, leaving that to us will do, even if we 8 will hardly contend against this 5 poisons. The Lingbo fairy softly said. In addition, for those participating in this matter, we will not treat everyone unfairly. The Holy Mother has already agreed to give each person 2 petals of 1,000 bells immortals due to act as remuneration. The fellows participating in this 5 Poisons Mountain mission will forever have the 10 great sects as their ally. As we have said, if there are people who want to drift and live an existence without purpose, it would be better to allow this ancestor to might as well send them off. Ancestor Qianli laughed aloud, his tone containing a slight killing intent. These great cultivators where you speak, I speak, Big stick with a radish, a kind and powerful exertion. They basically did not allow these cultivators to have a second option. Besides suffering in silence, everyone had no alternative but agreement. There were also some cultivators that secretly used their heads to stealthily leave. Envious of the East seemed to have anticipated this. The corner of his mouth hung a disdainful grin. I forgot to inform everyone, but the disciples of the Holy Mother have been careless the past few days. They carelessly poured evil conch blood into the liquor. It would be hard to say what happens if you do not ingest the antidote within 7 days. What? Everyone was alarmed, showing furious expressions. Evil conch blood? Fong Xianggu was startled. Su Xing thought, as expected, these great sects leave no room to maneuver when they do things. Evil conch blood was a colorless and tasteless strange poison. After ingestion, if the cure was not taken within 7 days, the evil conch blood would activate. The cultivator's entire body would twist, bleed from the 7 apertures of the head and then die. Furthermore, this evil conch blood was not an ordinary poison. Detoxification pearls and the like could not be used to cure it. 5. The evil conch blood was a poison art of the Vermilion Bird Territory's 100 Flowers clan. Without their magic, the poison would induce death in 7 days. Su Xing actually did not fear this. Star Masters with the star nests could rely on the star energy of their star general to expel the poison. Seeing that Fong Xianggu's expression was calm, Su Xing could not help but raise his eyebrows. Why should Senior be so overbearing? The big man gnashed his teeth. As matters stand, so long as we pass this 5 poisons mountain, the antidote will be self-offered. Do not resent our heartlessness. I am also afraid a traitor among everyone present may leak information to Falling Dragon Mountain. Then that would be anything but reassuring. I ask for your forgiveness. Envious of the East sincerely said. Although everyone knew these were superficial words, they dared only to be angry, but they did not dare to speak. It seems this matter is indeed severely dangerous. Then we can only agree. Su Xing smiled. 6. When all the cultivators heard that, they had no alternative. They could only inwardly curse. These supercluster stage star cultivators had completed things to this stage, and for them to dare say no, they certainly would be treated as traitors and be disposed of. Very well. We will not forget everyone's loyalty. Envious of the East and the other sect ancestral masters glanced at each other, showing satisfied expressions. Then, Holy Mother Chi Xia's maids actually gave each cultivator 2 flowers of the 1,000 bells immortals due. As far as galaxy stage cultivators were concerned, this was considered a sizable consolation. They thought only of passing 5 Poisons Mountain, and with the protection of the 8 great ancestral masters, perhaps it would not be dangerous. Thinking of this, they calmed. This is something the Holy Mother wanted slave servant to give to your majesty for use as protection. When the maid gave Su Xing and Wu Xiao their share of the 1,000 bells immortals due, she stealthily brought out a treasure mirror and gave it to Wu Xiao along with 10 more flowers of the 1,000 bells immortal due. Thanks. Su Xing thanked them on Wu Xiao's behalf, glancing at Holy Mother Chi Xia. This Holy Mother Chi Xia really was not that cold-blooded. It was just that when he raised his head to gaze at that envious of the East, that smug ancestral master star cultivator, this trip to 5 Poisons Mountain seemed to be one way. This mirror was approximately 3 inches, its surface like glass. The flash of red clouds it gave off were actually good-looking, and it seemed that this was a heavenly spirit-grade astral treasure. This mirror is named Shifting Star Mirror. If it reflects upon a goo, then the mirror will seal it. Breaking out is difficult. Holy Mother Chi Xia's sound transmission reached their minds, and Su Xing faintly nodded. He and Wu Xiao looked at each other pensively. Envious of the East was again giving an inspiring speech, and he even gave each person a piece of 5 Poisons Mountain's precious stones to act as a sect's keepsake in the future. His methods were exceptional, for this action incited the entire crowd into a fervor, firing them up. We shall trouble Holy Mother Chi Xia to go stall Immeasurable Mountain's ancestor Zhao Hua and Silver Night Mountain's Queen Lady Yu Chun. Envious of the East cupped his fist. Holy Mother Chi Xia nodded her head. All fellows, there is no time to lose. So as to avoid sudden changes, we shall move out now. The 8 great ancestral masters on their riding swords flew out of Red Cloud Hall, and more than 100 galaxy cultivators helplessly followed. Su Xing, do you truly wish to go? Wu Xiao furrowed her brow and said, as these supercluster cultivators have planned, this 5 Poisons Mountain is perhaps a trip without return. She and Su Xing thought together. It just so happens I want to help cure little Huang of the goo poison. With their help, what could you have against it? Su Xing was unconcerned. He currently was full of self-confidence. With more than 100 flowers of 1,000 bells immortal dew, it was enough for him to shake the miraculous Bodhi tree. Even if the 8 ancestors simultaneously attacked, Su Xing had enough confidence to escape unscathed. He, on the contrary, was more concerned about Wu Xiao. Xiao, could it be that you want to go? Your servant naturally wants to see that 10,000-year goo. The corner of Wu Xiao's mouth twitched slightly, a cold grin. An expanse of sword light flew towards 5 Poisons Mountain, and within this, Envious of the East was the most conspicuous. For all cultivators, even those supercluster ancestors were relying on flight artifacts and magic treasures if not riding swords. Only Envious of the East was simply not in need of any device. His silhouette directly rose into the sky. Legends said that supervoid cultivators' star energy could meld into one with the world. Upon reaching this realm, flight did not require any supplementary tools, and it was even swifter than artifacts and magic weapons by some, making people envious. Wu Xiao, who was not capable of riding swords at all, just sat on Su Xing's wind-swayed divine raft. No one doubted the two were a married couple. With this many cultivators mobilized, in order to not be detected, Envious of the East also fully used an immortal magic, threatening eyes and ears. 2. Approximately several hours afterwards, the 5 Poisons Mountain enveloped in poison gas was visible to everyone. In the 10 years since the Rock Demon King constructed the Jade Alum Palace at 5 Poisons Mountain, the poison fog and demon smoke of 5 Poisons Mountain was more and more profound. It was unknown to what terrifying state the 5 Poisons Mountain inside had developed into. The hearts of a group of galaxy-stage cultivators pounded when they saw this. Looking at the 5 Poisons Mountain pervaded by smoke and rolling magic clouds, the forbid dance evidently had already activated. In the several thousand li surrounding 5 Poisons Mountain, everyone halted. Divine light shone brightly from Envious of the East's eyes, and looking around, in front is the core of 5 Poisons Mountain's forbid dance. The poison smoke inside has reportedly been condensed for 10,000 years, incomparably toxic. For those unafraid of death and capable of flight, this 5 Poisons Mountain's 4 sides possess more than 20 array points. I see that we should divide here into 4 groups, breaking each from the 4 directions east, west, south, and north. All fellows, how about it? The other ancestral masters were silent, and the galaxy stage cultivators basically did not have the right to speak. Good. Then 2 ancestral masters each will guide in excess of 40 juniors. This matter of life and death for the Azure Dragon territory shall be passed to everyone, and I ask that all of you pull together as one and withstand calamity. Envious of the East clearly said, we will converge again when the time comes. Everyone said yes in succession. The close to 200 galaxy cultivators and 8 ancestral masters split into 4 groups, flying in the 4 directions. Su Xing's group had more than 40 cultivators, the majority of which had cultivations at galaxy early stage. The highest was Wu Xiao. For better or for worse, the supercluster cultivator for this group was Ancestor Qianli of the Blooming Water Sword sect, as well as the Tai Sword sect's Taoist Master Qing Lian. The two could be said to from the 2 great sects that hated Su Xing to the bone. Who does Envious of the East think he is? This manner of following blindly truly makes this ancestor unhappy. Ancestor Qianli looked at the others departing, somewhat indignantly sneering. The Taoist Master Qing Lian beside him was sage-like, extraordinarily refined. He stroked his long beard. Fellow Qianli, these words are better not spoken to Envious of the East's face. Ha ha, Taoist Master Qing Lian, this ancestor naturally knows I am not a supervoid cultivator's opponent. However, that said, we are in any case each the grand ancestral masters of our sex, yet we are to obey him? Could it be you are very comfortable? Taoist Master Qing Lian faintly smiled. This time, we are all working for the common purpose of the Azure Dragon territory's safety. There is no so-called obey or disobey. Would this ancestor believe in this sort of shit? Ancestor Qianli laughed aloud. Gloomily, he said, did we not come for the 10,000-year goo, and for whoever obtains this 10,000-year goo, they would someday be Azure Dragon territory's overlord. Taoist Master Qing Lian smiled but did not speak. Taoist Master Qing Lian, how about if the two of us link hands? Ancestor Qianli said slyly. This ancestor sees the others certainly will also link hands. With this ancestor's blooming water divine thunder and the Taoist master's 360 extreme white-black-green lotus flying swords, should we act together, would we still need to fear envious of the East? There is only one 10,000-year goo. Fellow certainly must not have wild thoughts. Taoist Master Qing Lian vaguely replied. Ancestor Qianli smiled. This is simple. If the Taoist master seizes the 10,000-year goo, so long as you help this ancestor kill the purple thunder monster, that purple thunder monster's items will be given to me. What do you say? Conversely, if this ancestor luckily obtains it, I will certainly help the Taoist master kill the purple thunder monster, and his items shall belong to you. With the 10,000-year goo, who would care about that purple thunder monster's things? Taoist Master Qing Liang murmured to himself. Evidently, he had been somewhat piqued by Ancestor Qian Li's words. How about it? Within the current great sects, only our 2-star masters have been slain by the purple thunder monster. Honestly speaking, it is only us that genuinely hates the purple thunder monster to the bone. No one loses out if we act together. The Taoist Master Qing Liang smiled. Hey, talk more later. We had best still quickly rush towards our top priority, so as to avoid envious of the East becoming the winner. Ancestor Qianli gloomily cursed the old fox. This ancestor's ugly words have been said, yet he still feigns righteousness before this ancestor. Having heard the bare and treacherous deal between these two ancestors, the galaxy stage cultivators each were somewhat frightened. Wu Xiao looked pensively at Su Xing. Should these two ancestors realize the purple thunder monster they wanted to kill was right among them at this moment, it was unknown what kind of marvel that would be. Su Xing also chuckled, a sort of unconcerned appearance. Ancestor Qianli at this time turned his head back, sternly saying, presumably, you have heard this ancestor's words. This ancestor is not like that sweet-talking hypocrite, envious of the East. We have long heard news of the 10,000-year goo, and moving out at this time, it is only because the 10,000-year goo is about to be born. Breaking the array points, that is only for the sake of allowing an easy escape from the Rock Demon King after seizing the 10,000-year goo. If this 10,000-year goo is stolen, do you know what this represents? If you have ambitions, you can make a vain attempt. This ancestor only wants you to be self-aware. However, as long as you help this ancestor obtain that 10,000-year goo, this ancestor will not treat you unfairly. What do you think? We will surely go through water and tread on fire for the ancestor, they promptly said. Ancestor Qianli laughed aloud, waving his large sleeve. Only an outstanding talent can recognize current trends. 3. We shall go in like this. The crowd of cultivators hesitated before they still entered the dense fog. Su Xing turned his head to look behind him. It seems that they hate you abnormally. Do you still wish to go? Wu Su asked through sound transmission. If you expose your identity, you must understand clearly the consequences. It is precisely because of that. Right now is the best opportunity. Su Xing gazed at Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian, inwardly smirking. Wu Xiao was silent. A dense, non-dispersing poison cloud that was like a mara blocked everyone's line of sight. Before them was a dark green swamp. Over a range of 1,000 li bubbles were emitted in the middle of the swamp with a gunong 5 sound. After these bubbles burst apart, a wisp of green smoke rose. This green smoke filled the area above the swamp, carrying a type of corrosive scent. One look was all it took to know this was highly toxic. Few cultivators were somewhat hesitant to advance upon seeing the scene before them. Seeing that swamp was just like boiling water, anyone could see, in the case someone fell into it, returning alive was absolutely impossible. Senior Qing Lian, how shall we cross this? A male cultivator was green in the face when he saw that green poison smoke. Just the swamp's odor was unpleasant. This is Poison Dragon Swamp, one of the 5 poisons of 5 Poisons Mountain. We can still barely use riding swords. All fellows, I ask again that we search for the array point in the vicinity. This is also for the sake of making us better. Taoist Master Qing Lian was unlike Ancestor Qianli, speaking with a warm comfort. When everyone heard, they looked at each other in dismay. At once, they used their flying swords. They might as well, for the toxic gas at 5 Poisons Mountain's Poison Dragon Mountain was not too thick. On the borderlines of the forbid dance, the flying swords actually could ascend several zhang. This made the cultivators breathe out a sigh of relief. They released every sort of sword chant for protection as they very carefully forged their way. However, the green poison smoke of Poison Dragon Swamp was still formidable. A few cultivators' flying swords were unable to bear the poison gas and had been easily corrupted, rendering those cultivators incomparably distressed. Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian glanced at each other and showed peculiar expressions. Ancestor Qianli released a flight artifact and directly flew over while Taoist Master Qing Lian lagged unhurriedly behind. The two, with one in front and one in back, were not afraid these cultivators would play some sort of trick. Su Xing naturally did not have any interest in helping these supercluster ancestors execute their task. He and Wu Xiao entered the swamp. 6. And Su Xing deeply mulled over Poison Dragon Swamp. It was reasonable to say that a star cultivator relying on covering themselves completely in star energy to handle the swamp naturally was not out of the realm of possibility. However, seeing those extremely poison gases of this Poison Dragon Swamp that had been refined, one touch was enough to feel a burning pain. Gunung! They heard a scream, "Save me!" Due to the dense fog in the sky above the swamp, anywhere above several zhang was impossible to see clearly. They could only rely on weak presences to sense. It sounded as if an unfortunate cultivator had fallen into the swamp. The other cultivators shivered in their hearts, somewhat shrinking back. All fellows, having all reached the stage, you must not get cold feet. From behind them came the warning of the Taoist master, a dagger hidden in his smile. Brother Su Xing, careful. These green poison gases can easily corrupt flying swords. Falling down there is death without doubt. Fang Exangu flew over at this moment, and with him was Jing Yanran. Su Xing nodded. It seemed this boundless swamp's poison smoke changed without stop. He thought, these old monsters sure enough are shrewd. Apparently, they had foreseen this situation. Seeking out scattered star cultivators was entirely for them to pathfind. All of the cultivators successively used their abilities to dispel or evade the poison smoke, flying past Poison Dragon Swamp at high speed. There seems to be something below that swamp. Jing Yanran pointed below the swamp and suddenly said. Su Xing stared, and as expected, he saw that in the frothing bubbles of the swamp, there was some object apparently spying on them in secret. Fang Exangu wrinkled his brows, activating a talisman. The talisman became a fireball that sunk into the swamp, very quickly being engulfed. The shadow also disappeared instantly. Be a bit more careful, Su Xing warned. And if Poison Dragon Swamp's range was several thousand li. The green smoke of the swamp were like will-o-the-wisps, and knowing how formidable these toxic gases were, all the cultivators did not dare lower their guard. Each used their own life-cast sword chant for protection, and with the defense of the sword chant, handling the poison smoke was even more possible. However, doing so would greatly wear out their star energy. Practically before they had walked out of 5 Poisons Mountain's first poison, some cultivators were forced to eat 1 flower of the 1,000 bells immortals do. Su Xing's star energy was deep and resounding. Let alone that it was only galaxy early stage, just his star energy was probably only a little bit off compared to supercluster stage. His pathfinding was abnormally easy, and Fang Exangu followed behind him. Jing Yan ran, though, fixed her gaze tightly on the swamp. These supercluster cultivators seemed to have the mind to preserve their magic energy to confront the 10,000-year goo, for they followed only the routes that had already been scouted. They even incessantly urged for everyone to go quickly find Poison Dragon Swamp's eastern array point. Although everyone was somewhat resentful, as matters stood, there was no path back. Approximately several hours later, they suddenly heard a cultivator shout in pleasant surprise. "I found the array point." Hearing this voice, everyone immediately flew over. Su Xing and Fang Xinggu also rushed over, and needless to say, more than 40 of them had surrounded it a short time later. What they saw was a giant stone obelisk, about 10 zhang tall. Its entire body was pitch black, a totem etched with strange spells. A giant sculpted snake wound around the stone stele. Cyan scales grew all over this snake's skin, and it had sharp fangs, a form that seemed to be particularly shocking. "Go!" a cultivator coldly shouted. Maneuvering his flying sword, it went there to attack. Several dozen flying swords clanged as they cut onto the barrier over the obelisk. Suddenly, at this moment, that carved snake's eyes emitted a dim light. The body that had obviously been one with the pillar abruptly began to slither along the stele. Astonishingly, it had come to life. The swamp's poison gas suddenly thickened. A long, black shadow violently rushed out from the swamp's depths. Due to every cultivator's riding sword flying at low altitudes, only several meters away from the swamp, when the shadow attacked, several people were unable to react and were eaten. Astonishingly, it was a black-scaled python. Over the silent marsh, there were several screams. 3 cultivators had been pulled into the Poison Dragon Swamp in the blink of an eye, their life or death uncertain. "Careful, it is the Poison Dragon Black Python," everyone shouted. Voila! 2. The swamp broke open, and several Poison Dragon Black Pythons rushed out, opening their maws wide. These Poison Dragon Black Pythons were 5 poison severe beasts. They lived within Poison Dragon Swamp, absorbing poison gas to live. Their poisonous fangs shot poison light, sprayed poison fog. Everyone here was a scattered star cultivator, who ordinarily often experienced danger. Hastily, they struck their sword chants, and several hundred flying swords were just like a giant net that flew over. In an instant, the sword light and poison light struck each other. But this swamp's Poison Dragon Black Pythons all had been roused. 100 of the giant pythons endlessly rushed out, bringing everyone in extreme pressure. Taoist Master Qing Lian and Ancestor Qianli rushed over in succession. "Everyone, immediately use your sword chants to break this obelisk now." Ancestor Qianli this time did not hold back. 100 flying swords appeared, and these flying swords were very abnormal. They completely integrated with blooming water divine thunder. The swords had water thunder, the thunder light dazzling. Su Xing's eyes concentrated. It seemed that this Ancestor Qianli was much more powerful than Ancestor Bailey. Just these flying swords were more awesome by quite a bit. Taoist Master Qing Lian at this time also gave a low shout. His 2 hands formed a seal, and suddenly, cold light glared from every place on his body. At the same time, he launched more than 100 green rays of light. These green beams swelled the moment they appeared. In a flash, more than 100 dull green flying swords imposingly formed. After a burst of sword light, all of the flying swords automatically formed an odd formation. It revolved indefinitely over Taoist Master Qing Lian's head, concealing a chilling killing intent. The 2 supercluster cultivators promptly acted. The blooming water divine thunder filled the skies and bloomed, the water thunder exploding layer upon layer. Taoist Master Qing Liang's 360 extreme white-green lotus swords spun without end, the sword light seemingly unstoppable. The moment they acted, they promptly brought relief to the pressure on everyone. The others immediately went to attack the Poison Dragon Stone Stele. "Not good!" a cultivator suddenly screamed. They saw the poison snake on the obelisk open its mouth, and it unbelievably rushed out. That cultivator, along with his flying sword even, were swallowed by the poison snake. When the others saw, their faces were white. Flying swords were thrown in succession without end, And every sort of artifact was also completely put to full use. That enormous azure python opened its mouth, spraying a blue light. The other cultivators did not dare receive it, and each avoided it. You all go quickly. This ancestor is already helping you handle these poison dragon black pythons. Quickly go break the array point. Ancestor Qianli shouted. Heavenly Deficiency Sword Array. 18 Dark True Swords. Hanging Star Sword Array. Several dozen cultivators surrounded the obelisk, their sword chants repeatedly rumbling, but that enormous azure snake scales were incomparably hard. It withstood the flying sword attacks of the cultivators, and the poison gas on the swamp was even more concentrated. Having been rolled over by its mouth opening, several cultivators were careless and were greeted with the fate of falling into the swamp without emerging. Su Xing did not use heaven tearing at all. Rather, he used his divine intent to control more than 30 flying swords and artifacts. Immemorial sword chant heaven tearing was a top-notch terror. If he brought it out, it would be hard to avoid being noticed by Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian, and Su Xing certainly did not want to be noticed right now. Under the continuous attacks of this many cultivators, the flying swords were just like a net of swords that endlessly attacked the gigantic azure python. Everyone gradually calmed down, and their movements no longer confused. They handled this more easily now. The giant azure python at this time suddenly scuttled into the swamp, and for a time, the flying swords were incapable of attacking. Meanwhile, Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian had dispatched 100 poison dragon black pythons. Seeing that the cultivators were still idle, they immediately shouted, "Hurry and go break the stone steel." But what about that black python? This is the array point's guardian beast. It running away is naturally for the better. Ancestor Qianli said nothing further, and his flying sword went to attack the obelisk. Suddenly, at this time, the poison smoke abruptly condensed, and originally open air was crammed full of poison smoke in the blink of an eye. Not good. When everyone saw, they began to attack the obelisk without the slightest hesitation. With the two supercluster cultivators' assistance, breaking this obelisk was a matter of 1 minute. Seeing the obelisk collapse, Ancestor Qianli was satisfied. Depart. The others did not dare neglect their riding swords and left, but the green poison smoke was increasingly concentrated. Everyone could only sacrifice their magic energy to go ward it off, but by doing so, their speed considerably slowed. Just at this time, the swamp erupted. The previous gigantic azure python transformed into a black serpent that rushed out, shockingly towards Fang Xianggu's direction. Fang Xianggu's expression changed. Everyone practically felt he was dead without doubt. Su Xing grit his teeth, and just when he was about to use heaven tearing, just at this moment, Wu Xiao seized his hand. She surreptitiously shook her head, her eyes sharply watching. The poison python soared like a dragon, fiercely opening its mouth wide. They saw the always inactive girl Zheng Yanran suddenly flash. In the vastness of her white hair, a weapon of gold light appeared in her hand instantly and rushed past the python. She raised the weapon in her hand, and she ruthlessly chopped at that immense poison dragon black python's venomous fangs. Let alone that Zheng Yanran's outward appearance was extremely delicate, frivolous. With an expensive appearance, when she acted with this severity and viciousness, her attack was immediately fatal. She was intent on snapping this poison dragon python's venomous fangs. So long as the head suffered severe damage, this poison dragon black python's strength would harshly decrease. If other places were cut, although it could give this poison dragon black python wounds, the effectiveness was not as clear as snapping its fangs. The poison dragon python ferociously turned its head around. It saw the face of glittering demonic green light as well as a gorgeous and blinding white saber light appear before it. The poison dragon python indignantly hissed, and it released green light from its fangs when it saw that cold light. Zheng Yanran coldly grinned. The cold weapon carried an air-shattering whistle and an astral wind that broke open the green light. The two venomous fangs were simultaneously shattered, and then the girl's delicate figure scuttled, mercilessly cutting into the poison dragon python's back. She penetrated straight through, and a white cold light practically cut this half of the body off. Boomed, the poison dragon python was as if it had met a lightning bolt. Its body violently shook, and the python raised its head and miserably hissed. It flung its snake tail heavily at Jing Yanran. How could the one acting as the guardian beast of the array point be underestimated? Just the gale that tail raised was enough to blow away many cultivators. That wide dress in front began to float in the poison wind. Jing Yanran's eyes carried a carefree sneer as she confronted that maw of the poison dragon python. That ugly mouth seemed to want to swallow the person whole, bones and all. The poison dragon python's error was in estimating the girl's fighting strength. Then the next saber attack came cutting, the saber chi like a falling snowflake. The sliced poison dragon python howled incessantly, continuously sweeping out poison light, but Jing Yanran would not give it any opportunities to gasp for breath. Immediately, she began to enter her second wave of attacks. The weapon chopped, and the poison dragon python's stomach was suddenly sliced open with blood gushing from the wound. The poison dragon python bellowed, curling its body up. Jing Yanran laughed in the poison wind. She had already jumped high into the air, a whirlwind spinning around her, best described as protection. She rolled in midair, and when she landed, her legs heavily stamped onto the still shocked poison dragon python's head. Pooh! Jing Yanran's knee accurately struck, and a sword turned the poison dragon python's spitting into whimpers. She simply did not give the poison dragon python the time to wail. At this time, Jing Yan still had her previous innocence. Now, she had become like a demon or a god, her calm face no longer with any fluctuations. She did not have any sympathy for the devastated poison dragon python, and her actions were even more ruthless. The cold light wandered, and the saber's tip rose and fell. The surrounding poison creatures and poison gas immediately were dispersed by an ice cold roar. The poison dragon sank into the swamp and was thoroughly incapable of budging. Shua! Jing Yanran smoothly landed on the poison dragon python's body. That shiny straight sword emitted bits of cold light, and her forehead had a star shimmer. Her acting out was not more than the time of a few breaths, yet she easily wiped out this guardian beast. Seemingly as if they were dreaming, the cultivators did not return to their senses. A star general! Ah, star general! Everyone shouted when they saw that cold light straight saber. This saber was seemingly refined and tempered with cold frost, the saber top's cold light seemingly like snow, thoroughly ice-cold. A white dragon extended from the back of the blade to the hilt, gorgeous enough to make people speechless. Jade dragon misfortune snow. Ancestor Qianli's pupils shrunk. Different star fair-skinned gentleman Jing Tianshou. 5. Jing Yanran's gaze was somewhat ice-cold yet somewhat absent-minded. Her figure flashed, and she returned to Fang Xiangu's side. Star Master! Everyone was astonished. Not a single person foresaw that Fang Xiangu was a Star Master, that his cousin unexpectedly was a Star General. Although she seemed to only be the ranked 74th different star, the martial force she just displayed made everyone change. Ancestor Qianli coldly smiled. Ever since his school's Star Master had been destroyed, he currently saw Star Generals in a bad light no matter what. Your servant is Fang Xiangu. Because of chance and coincidence, your servant has signed a contract with his cousin. Due to great concerns, your servant asks seniors and fellows to understand. Fang Xiangu cupped his fist and said, You have hidden yourself quite deeply. If it were not for that poison dragon's surprise attack just now, this old man would have been fooled by you. Ancestor Qianli put on a fake smile. The other cultivators gazed at Fang Xiangu with gladness and alarm. Jing Yanran stowed away the straight saber jade dragon, coldly snorting. The fellows at this place are here for the Azure Dragon territory's safety, regardless of whether or not you are a Star Master is irrelevant. Since even this fellow can lend a helping hand by his Star Master status, indeed the youth can stay. The Taoist Master Qing Lian's mouth spat out a lotus flower to ingeniously carry this matter forward. We had better quickly pass this 5 poisons mountain, so as not to tarry our time. Taoist Master Qing Lian looked at Ancestor Qianli. Ancestor Qianli chuckled and asked Fang Xiangu, What is your name? Your servant is Fong Xengu. Fong Xengu did not dare be careless. You must have a sect? Your servant is alone. Very good, how about if you enter the Blooming Water Sword sect for this 5 Poisons Mountain? This ancestor will personally take you as a disciple, so long as you wish to lend the Blooming Water Sword sect a helping hand. Ancestor Qianli laughed out loud. Seeing him unexpectedly recruit a star master, the Taoist master Qing Lian did not speak. Fong Xengu was somewhat hesitant, but he knew that since a supercluster ancestral master dared to ask like this, naturally the ancestor would not allow him to say no. Many thanks for senior's consideration. Fong Xengu could only speak like this. The Zheng Yan ran behind him, wrinkled her nose, appearing displeased. Ancestor Qianli's mood was very good as far as the eye could see. If anyone else among you is a star master, quickly state your name. This ancestor will not harm him. The Star Master under Ancestor Qing Lian's school has been killed by the Purple Thunder Monster, and now is also an opportunity for you to develop. Ancestor Qianli was very cunning. In order to avert harming his teamwork with Ancestor Qing Lian, he immediately spoke like this, to prominently show his good faith. Ancestor Qing Lian's face wore a slight smile as he nodded. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, not a single one of them admitting so. Ancestor Qianli suddenly pointed at Su Xing. He gloomily said, "This ancestor just now discovered that everyone is using flying swords, yet you and the woman with you are not doing anything. Could it be said she is a star general?" Everyone looked at Su Xing, a face of fright as they stared at Wu Xiao. Their hearts actually believed this about 70 to 80%. Wu Xiao's cool elegance was threatening, and how could this personality be matched by ordinary star cultivators? Only those legendary star generals could have this level of imposing aura. Only then did Taoist Master Qing Lian notice Wu Xiao, his eyes gleaming. Su Xing smiled wholeheartedly. "Senior misunderstands, this is your servant's wife, how could she be a star general?" "Wife?" Ancestor Qianli smiled oddly. "You, a galaxy early stage, has this beautiful and gorgeous of a wife." Wu Xiao's eyes had a trace of killing intent, so Su Xing held her hand. Wu Xiao went blank, but she immediately understood Su Xing's meaning. Lowering her gaze, she did not let anyone see her eyes, but if they were visible, most probably even Ancestor Qianli would be scared pale. Su Xing restrained the thought to kill him. His appearance was still deferential as he said, "Senior has also said so, your servant is only galaxy early stage, so what qualifications does your servant have to sign a star general that can pretend to be galaxy late stage?" Speaking as such, everyone was somewhat relieved. To be able to feign being galaxy late stage, at the minimum, she would have to be among the first 20 heavenly stars. By Su Xing's current strength, he was extremely mediocre. Even that flying sword was not level, so it was not believable. Is there not also another sort of possibility? That the contracted star general is capable of disguising her star energy? Ancestor Qianli remained unmoved. Su Xing feigned a difficult expression. Fong Xengu at this time said, "Senior, is this ancestor still called Senior?" Ancestor Qianli smiled. Fong Xengu was embarrassed and promptly corrected himself. "Master, disciple can testify. Fellow Su Xing is not a star master at all." "Reason?" Ancestor Qianli flatly said. "It is like this. Fellow Su Xing's wife previously had yin deficiency. Fellow Su Xing even specifically helped Lady Su purchase medicine to mend her body. If she was a star general, how could there possibly be this sort of matter?" His words made the others enter into a commotion. Although they knew the two had a relationship, when they heard Fong Xengu be so frank, they were very much jealous of Su Xing. A few female cultivators gazed at Wu Xiao and blushed. "Is this true?" Ancestor Qianli wrinkled his brow. He naturally knew that although star generals were remarkably beautiful, since ancient times, who would not have dared to have the idea of a star general's pure yin? Legend said that in the past, there were many cultivators that relied on every sort of means to forcibly seize a star maiden. However, in those times, with falling skies of bright stars, people that harbored this sort of idea would die a very ugly death. However, Ancestor Qianli looked at Wu Xiao. Yesterday was somewhat tense, making Wu Xiao currently appear comparatively exhausted. Now, she actually made people feel she truly did have that sort of impression of being very tired due to sex. Then why does she not use a flying sword? Taoist Master Qing Lian curiously asked. That is because my wife is pregnant. Su Xing forced a smile. Pregnant? Everyone was startled. Life-cast flying swords were nurtured in the body. If a woman was pregnant, then indeed she could not use a flying sword. This was explainable, and Fang Xianggu looked in shock at Su Xing Yenran's smile, though, was somewhat mysterious. This ancestor still is not too convinced. How could Ancestor Qianli be that easy to deceive? Wu Xiao was somewhat impatient and wanted to call out the white and black unicorn tiger to open its mouth wide to kill him. Had the harmed star pilgrim Wu Song ever been encircled by a crowd like this before? Su Xing rolled his eyes. He had a plan, and he immediately said helplessly, Senior really is incredible. Your servant does not dare deceive Senior. Your servant indeed is a star master. What? Fang Xianggu was hoarse, and everyone was stunned. Ancestor Qianli laughed heartily, with a sort of satisfied feeling of vanity. Why must you conceal 1,000 ways? Unexpectedly, even pregnancy has been mentioned. What star general is this, that she could unexpectedly be willing to let you take her virginity? Fuck, there's no need for this idiot to provoke Wu Song if he wants to die. Su Xing said, Senior misunderstands, this is your servant's wife. He paused, saying nothing. His shoulder shook, and there suddenly was a bright glow. Gong Sun Huang appeared out of thin air and sat on Su Xing's shoulder, her eyes blinking. Everyone was stupefied. This is your servant Star General, but to be honest, she has been inflicted with the extreme toxins of Lady Snake Scorpion's Star General. She has already lost her fighting capabilities, thus your servant can only conceal her. Su Xing made a bitter smile. Ancestor Qianli fixed his gaze and looked. Sure enough, he discovered that Gong Sun Huang was abnormally weak, that her body had goo poison within. This time, he absolutely was not mistaken. The other envious cultivators were relieved. Many even had jeering expressions. Originally, they were still very jealous that Su Xing was a star master and also had a beauty beside him. Now, they saw his star general unexpectedly was trash. The hearts of many of them somewhat took comfort and joy in his misfortune. So it turned out to be this? Ancestor Qing Lian sneered. However, you deceived this ancestor like this. Your audacity truly is not small. A powerful pressure immediately pressed down on Su Xing. Forget it, this fellow had no other choice. Taoist Master Qing Lian stroked his beard, slowly interrupting Ancestor Qianli. He flatly looked at Su Xing. Do you wish to enter this ancestor's school? This 5 Poisons Mountain is also to confront that Lady Snake Scorpion. That goo poison can be cured, so there is no need to worry. Then thanks to the Taoist Master. Su Xing said. Taoist Master Qing Lian smiled in satisfaction. In reality, he had no interest at all in star masters like Su Xing that had trash star generals, but it was sufficient cause to kill Lady Snake Scorpion when the time came. Moreover, having a star general gave sex quite a bit of face. His thoughts and Ancestor Bailey's could be said to hold the same opinion. In their eyes, so long as this was beneficial to them, star generals could be taken in and exploited. There is no time to lose. We must first go to the next 5 poisons. Taoist Master Qing Lian beckoned with his hand. Sword light escaped away. Why did you not allow your servant to kill these old farts? Wu Xiao coldly said. If she commanded the white and black unicorn tiger to do so, she actually did not fear these supercluster middle stages. Wife, I also very much want to kill them, but right now still is not the time. Su Xing shook his head. If they acted, the other cultivators would certainly stand on Ancestor Qianli's side. This place's topography was troublesome and there was nothing to do about it. Of course, Su Xing had another reason, which was that these 2 supercluster stage old monsters all had full energy. If the other ancestral masters were drawn over, that would be extremely far from good, let alone that 5 Poisons Mountain still had many more poisons to pass through. Right now, they still could not make a move. When it truly was time to move, he inevitably could not give them the chance to catch their breath. Su Xing then brought out the birth treasure outline. The book's pages flipped, reflecting material pertaining to Jing Yanran. Star position, different star name, Zheng Tianshou nickname, fair-skinned gentleman true name, Jing Yanran rank, 74th star weapon, Jade Dragon Misfortune Snow, 3-star, Star Beast. Rank, Realm, 1000 military's 6th stage innate skill, Pretty, 2, 5 elements, Water Yellow rank special skill, Icebreaker Snow Slicer, 3, Dark rank special skill, Saber Draw Watercutter current status, Contractor, Fong Xiangu, detailed materials. When Wu Xiao saw Su Xing take out the birth treasure outline, she could not help but wrinkle her brow. Awesome, unexpectedly, she's at 1000 military's 6th stage. Su Xing exclaimed. In his impressions, the fair-skinned gentleman along the water's edge was certainly not this incredible. When star generals are born, there is a certain realm and capability to grow. Your servant sees that she is very exceptional, very gifted, unexpectedly already reaching 1000 military's 6th stage. Wu Xiao was also very impressed. This sort of realm could defeat average heavenly stars. She has learned her dark rank special skill. It seems she is a formidable little sister. Wu Xiao nodded. Truly, she cannot be underestimated. In order to avoid the troublesome matter of another star master appearing in the midst of the star cultivators, Su Xing even decided to secretly seize the opportunity to first use the birth treasure outline to probe them. This was to avoid being taken advantage of others for their personal gain. Was what she used just now the saber draw watercutter? Su Xing asked. Wu Xiao shook her head. Your servant fears it is Icebreaker Snow Slicer. Do you wish to confront her? Gong Sun Huang blinked her eyes. Su Xing shook his head, smiling. You are afraid that when the time comes to handle Ancestor Qianli, that Fong Xiangu and Jing Yanran will act? Wu Xiao thoughtfully said. I am not a single bit worried. Su Xing shrugged his shoulders. At this time, he saw that the others had already directed their attention here. He did not find any other star masters, so Su Xing put the birth treasure outline away and went to catch up. 10 million li away in the direction of the Azure Dragon territory's southeast, there was a verdant and lush mountain range. This mountain chain was endless and unbroken. Looking from 100 li away, a practically limitless oily green could be seen. The fresh and green verdant forest reached a height of 40 to 50 zhang, just like swords stuck into the world, hardly giving cultivators any room to place their feet. With every gust of wind, the bamboo forest produced a sweet-sounding bamboo sound, like a favorite musical instrument, and doing so gracefully. The outside 1000 li seemingly could hear a, you are a silent black and white's tone. Make people unable to forget me. This place was Greencorn Mountain. 2. One of the Azure Dragon territory's 5 elements mountain ranges. On this day, a fire beacon chariot arrived above Greencorn Mountain. Due to the bamboo forest being excessively hidden in addition to the Greencorn Mountain being too high to reach, the fire beacon chariot could only stop a bit further away. The chariot had 4 girls currently looking into the distance at that mountain's indigo color. This is Greencorn Mountain. The girl wearing a light purple palace dress spoke in awe. Passing through and into this pair of clear eyes was an emerald green spectacular to the limit. Sister Xinjia, does this place really have suppressing evil gem bamboo? Another girl clad in a black skin-tight jumpsuit twitched her lips. The others directed their gaze to look at the woman between them who had planned this. These 5 were Lin Yingmei, Wu Xinjia, Shi Yuan and Insuan. 3. The reason they would come to Greencorn Mountain was to trace and help Lin Yingmei go look for ice kite Arctic jade, but this sort of jade itself was scarce. Wu Xinjia then thought to change their approach to look for a star general, the ranked 66th jade-armed craftsman Jin Dajian. This star general's greatest strength was in carving precious stones. If Tang Lianxin was said to be an absolute in tool refining, then Jin Dajian was number 1 in jade refinement. If they had her help, Lin Yingmei's ice kite Arctic jade would be very easy, let alone that Wu Xinjia had never not had the idea to assemble the sisters together. But unfortunately, that Jean Dajian had vanished without a trace, so Wu Xinjie and the girls borrowed Tang Lianxin's fire beacon chariot to continuously search, reaching the Azure Dragon territory's borderline. They heard nothing, though they actually did encounter several star generals. When they arrived here, Wu Xinjie recalled that material the wood element sword Su Xing was forging required was suppressing gem bamboo. Although Heavenly Gem Valley was a rumor, the fact was that Green Shushan was a precious place with an abundance of suppressing evil gem bamboo. Wu Xinjie then put forward her own opinion. To be able to help Su Xing find the materials for the flying sword, all the girls naturally would not oppose. This place unexpectedly completely is bamboo. Lin Yingmei's brow rose, somewhat surprised. As far as the eye could see, the bamboo forest became an ocean, the fresh green reaching the heavens. Unexpectedly, they could not see any other types of vegetation. The bamboo forest was quiet, serene, and deep. It gave people a sort of intoxication of tranquility to the limit, making people completely forget their worries. This place is all metal stone thread bamboo. 5. But it is very formidable. We need to be careful. Wu Xinjie reminded that to definitely not be fooled by the outer appearance of this bamboo forest. The metal stone thread bamboo was one sort of strange bamboo of Liangshan continent. This bamboo's appearance seemed ordinary, but it would vibrate to produce a sweet-sounding tone in response to sound. These tones were absolutely not ordinary, and every type of tuning would directly enter a cultivator's heart, making the cultivator give rise to an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. So long as a cultivator's mind was not sufficient to suppress it, they would be incapable of sobering up, and they would be imprisoned by the thread bamboo's magic sound, dying in bliss. It was for this reason this metal stone thread bamboo was also called peace and happiness bamboo. 6. Furthermore, the green corn mountain in front of them had at least 1,000,000 peace and happiness bamboo. The sound of wind brushing past would give rise to the magic sound, so Green Corn Mountain could be considered Liangshan continent's most tranquil place. Even supercluster cultivators were unwilling to stay at this place for long. Encountering a slight breeze was fine, but if they should meet a strong wind or a hurricane, this serene bamboo sound would immediately be more pressing than King Yama. Supercluster cultivators were hard-pressed to stop this alone. Hearing Wu Xinjie's explanation, Shi Yuan felt that the quiet environment before her had become more dreadful than a tomb. 7. Although star generals naturally possessed extraordinary star energy and that something like an actual hurricane would not make them lose their bearings, they could not avoid being affected. Wu Xinjie remembered a previous star duel had a star general fall at Green Corn Mountain. But star falling here is quite comfortable. Shi Yuan giggled. Wu Xinjie shook her head and was silent. Actually, there were many star generals that knew the star duels were hopeless, and they chose to eternally rest at Green Corn Mountain. We shall search at Green Corn Mountain, see whether or not we can find the suppressing evil gem bamboo. Green Corn Mountain is rich in Liangshan continent's most luxurious wood-type materials. With so many years having come and gone, the suppressing evil gem bamboo should have that many stalks. Wu Xinjie brimmed with self-confidence. If we can find the suppressing evil gem bamboo, Su Xing definitely will be startled. Shi Yuan was in a fantasy, having obtained several hundred stalks of suppressing evil gem bamboo as she watched Su Xing's dumbfounded expression. What a pity that this is such a beautiful place. Big Brother would definitely like it. And Su sighed. The other girls deeply held the same feeling, and they could not help but smile. This young master of theirs nearly treasured very unusually some of Liangshan's peculiar sights and landscapes, as if he forever could not get enough looking at them. This young lady actually really misses Su Xing. This young lady wonders how he and Wu Song are in the vermilion bird territory. Little E should have converged with Su Xing by now. Shi Yuan appeared to panic. Separated by a distance of tens of millions of li, this made the thief star feel her heart was missing a bit of something. She had even thought of might as well using the suicide method to directly find Su Xing. After the second stage passed, regardless of how far apart a star general and her master were, so long as she died, she would instantly return to the star nest anyways. It was just that this was too lacking in face, And Shi Yuan certainly did not want Su Xing to always joke about her. Wu Xinjie laughed into her sleeve. Suddenly she saw Lin Yingmei also was somewhat staring blankly. "Yingmei, do you also miss young lord? Your servant just now seemed to have seen a figure in this place just now." Lin Yingmei knit her brow. "A cultivator?" And Suan asked. "Maybe it's a demon beast?" Shi Yuan said. Places like Green Corn Mountain with terrain abundant in spirit also often had many demon beasts in existence. "Be careful," Wu Xinjie said. Gesturing with her hand, the fire beacon chariot took flight at Green Corn Mountain. Green Corn Mountain was extremely large, its ravines and cliffs innumerable. It was completely a expanse of green that would dazzle the eyes. The sound of wind gradually rose, and the thread bamboo's sounds were endless, as if that ninth heaven Brahman sung it. It was also just like an ancient clear sound that gradually disturbed the mind. Wu Xinjie and the rest did not dare be careless, and they circulated their star energy to calm their minds. Approximately several hours later, this big of a forest did not have an end in sight. The people inside this firmament's bamboo forest had a type of extremely minuscule feeling. Suddenly, a massive bamboo was reflected in Shi Yuan's eyes. The thief's stars were like a torch, instantaneously discerning all the differences in this bamboo. It was a sparkling and translucent jadeite, with greenish-blue droplets. When the metal stone thread bamboo produced its dull metallic light along with the sound of wind, only this bamboo concealed in the green grove was like a shy girl. "Suppressing evil gem bamboo," Shi Yuan shouted in pleasant surprise. It was just as Wu Xinjie thought. Green Corn Mountain was a precious place for spirit bamboo, and one or two growing in several hundred years was not strange. However, that suppressing evil gem bamboo was hidden within a forest of millions of bamboo. It really was not too easy to find if one was inattentively searching. The fire beacon chariot descended towards it, and as they drew increasingly near, this bamboo was increasingly simple. On the bamboo, there were indistinct naturally markings. These simple and unadorned markings made this bamboo seem to brim with a noble air, releasing a spirit fragrance. This was the standard of suppressing evil gem bamboo, evil suppressing marks. 8. Just at this moment, in an instant, the light breeze was suddenly violent, the horizon composing a song. They heard only a burst of melodious flute music that seemingly came from those prehistoric times, continuous and winding, lasting and rising, full of a fearsome magic energy. The metal stone thread bamboo here suddenly had been half resonated by this flute sound. The dull golden light abruptly strove for splendor against the sun, and a touching flute note like a sharp sword firmly passed through their hearts. Wu Xinjie, Lin Yingmei and the rest already had defenses, but they did not expect that this flute would be like a flood of 1,000 li. It rolled uninterrupted, instantly tearing the defenses in their hearts to shreds. The peace and happiness bamboo simultaneously flutter as the song drifted from the horizon. Seemingly, there were countless fairies fluttering around them, composing a song. Following the undulations in the timbre of this flute's sound, that wave-like flute sound was even more violent in its constant changes. Unexpectedly, it made the star generals incapable of withstanding it. "This is dark rank star magic." Wu Xinjie's expression changed, and she immediately heard the origins of this flute. At this moment, Green Corn Mountain, that span of tens of thousands of bamboo forests of concentrated green seemingly resonated, becoming a natural array. Perhaps this world had no other tuning array that could currently be stronger than this. The flute's sound was agile, yet it was completely unable to be completely expelled from the heart. The fire beacon chariot fell amidst the flute's song. Associated in the wake of this flute sound entering their hearts, the sound of a chilly wind also came over. Clang clang. Lin Yingmei's spear was raised, intercepting the attack. The newcomer was a girl in green clothes. She was blank with surprise, her lips chanting. More than 40 golden bamboo flying swords combined into one with clanging. Wu Xinjie and the rest fell into the forest. Lin Yingmei had that snow-winged cicada bodice, so she could glide in combat. Gritting her teeth, the Arctic star serpent spear immediately was waved. A cold light brushed away the flying sword, and the majestic star flashed towards the woman with a stab. Panther head Lin Chong. The woman cried out in alarm and did not dare be the slightest bit neglectful, her white hands forming hand seals. The flute noise was all the more resounding, and the entire bamboo sea from far away echoed seemingly to the grounds of that far-off prehistory. Lin Yingmei violently vomited a mouthful of blood. The woman saw this, and completely without hesitation, she slashed with the golden bamboo flying sword. Lin Yingmei flipped to the side, evading. Lin Chong, accept death. The woman shouted. The flute sound invading her mind incessantly engulfed Lin Yingmei's star energy, the girl continuously retreating. Sistering, quickly go kill that person, leave her to us. Shi Yuan and Ensuan blocked the woman's attack. I never thought there would be this many star generals. Do not think any of you can run. The woman snorted. A riding sword was above her, and her forehead had a green star twinkle. Astonishingly, she was a star master. She threw out a bamboo tube, and this bamboo tube sprayed out a clear chi onto the flying sword. The flying sword sharply expanded, its imposing aura even more fierce. Several dozen flying swords suddenly formed into more than 100 that went to cover her. 108 heavenly bamboo sword array. 9, go! Lin Yingmei wanted to counterattack, but that Deep Valley's flute sound was honestly too taxing. If it was not a weapon, it was something even better that made the girls simply incapable of forming an effective defense. A boom descended. The sky filled with bamboo trees lifted in waves. In the wake of the massive scorpion stone pillar collapsing with a boom, they had again sacrificed numerous cultivators. Su Xing's group finally could be considered to have destroyed the Scorpion Desert's second 5 poisons array point. The barren landscape was like rolling waves, a barren that was each built into a meter in size by Pipa poison scorpions. 10. The blood-red Calicera and that dazzling tail needle seemed to be very frightening. After entering the Scorpion's Desert, they were thoroughly incapable of riding swords. Everyone could only madly dash across the desert. If they sunk into quicksand, then they were dead for certain. Su Xing suddenly had a headache, and his expression slightly changed. What is the matter? Wu Xiao looked at Su Xing's startled expression in complete confusion. Even if they encountered the poison scorpion desert's Pipa Empress Scorpion, there was no need for him to be this shocked that she was slightly worried. Su Xing shook his head, his brow tightly knitting together. Lady Snake Scorpion stood at the highest hall of the Jade Alum Palace amid obscure and dense fog, boundless. Due to activating 5 Poisons Mountain's Forbid Dance, this dense fog had then concentrated to the peak. Even the Lady Snake Scorpion, who was an expert in goo poisons, could not pass through it. Little Diao and Little Chan stood around her. The twin-tailed scorpion Xie Chan that had just finished recovering in the star nest was still somewhat weak, her complexion pale. Gone were her former high spirits, and in her eyes was an additional trace of hatred. These Azure Dragon Territory cultivators actually came? Lady Snake Scorpion's pupils were ice-cold. The entire 5 Poisons Mountains Forbid Dance took 10 years to specially construct, layer upon layer of 5 poisons. The moment the Forbid Dance activated, ordinary cultivators that entered would die without doubt. Furthermore, Lady Snake Scorpion at this time distinctly sensed that 5 Poisons Mountains array points were being broken bit by bit. Kill these annoying bastards. Little Chan's silvery teeth were about to be ground to pieces. Mother, shall we notify that man? Little Diao expressionlessly inquired. There is still no need for that trouble yet. Lady Snake Scorpion's biggest worry was still that cultivator who had escaped from the Rock Demon King's hands, because it seemed from Little Chan's words that that cultivator was seemingly only Galaxy initial stage in cultivation. If it was like this, that was too shocking. However, a Galaxy cultivator could not possibly be this abnormal. Lady Snake Scorpion surmised this should be that Envious of the East. Zhongqi. Lady Snake Scorpion suddenly said. A lanky and stern man emerged like a ghost. Lady, what command do you have? 5 Poisons Mountain perhaps cannot stand against that Envious of the East. At that time, this queen must trouble you. Lady Snake Scorpion said. Zhongqi nodded, as if handling a supervoid cultivator did not count as anything at all. Hearing him speak as such, Lady Snake Scorpion exhaled. This Zhongqi was a kindred spirit, 3, of the Rock Demon King. Reportedly, he was a terrifying White Tiger territory cultivator. His cultivation was incomprehensible that even the Rock Demon King was reverent of him. Having him handle Envious of the East, Lady Snake Scorpion was more reassured. Then, Lady Snake Scorpion walked into the top hall center. In the center of a black magic circle, several black array banners floated. The array banners were painted with the totems of 5 poisons, and 2 sides were already damaged. Lady Snake Scorpion beckoned with her hand, and a black-clawed toad banner flew before Lady Snake Scorpion. Several hundred demi-soldiers below the Jade Alum Palace assembled into the 5 poisons great array. The black banners in their hands flapped continuously as they walked at a mysterious pace. Just let the Toad Black River become the place you bury your bones. Lady Snake Scorpion watched the banner before her. She formed a hand seal and coldly smiled. Passing by the Scorpion's barrenness, what appeared before Su Xing's group was a boundless, massive sea. This sea was a uniform ink-like black. From the foul-smelling black qi that rose out from the sea, one looked told that this contained powerful poison. Many lotus leaves floated on the sea's surface. The lotus leaves being soaked in the Black River all year round had dyed them black. This sea was incomparably immense, and due to them not being able to use flight, the faces of all the cultivators changed when they saw such a large black river. This has got to be a joke. Over this kind of poison river, how can we cross it? Death without doubt. This is fundamentally impassable. Ancestor Qianli was displeased and said, "What are you shouting about? Could it be that you did not see those lotus leaves? Everyone need not be anxious. We only need to step on these lotus leaves and then we can cross." Taoist Master Qing Lian slightly smiled. Can that lotus leaf support a person? Some cultivators changed expressions. Su Xing watched as Ancestor Qianli's expression brimmed with a mocking expression that was anything but reassuring. As expected, Ancestor Qianli easily flipped his hand, lifting that cultivator that talked, and a gale directly sent him flying over. The cultivator turned pale with fright. His body fell and could only stand on one of the lotus leaves. Panicked and standing up in doubt, the lotus leaf seemingly could not hold and rocked a bit, scaring this cultivator into nearly tumbling. Only after seeing that it could steadily and smoothly support a single person did he finally breathe a sigh of relief. "Everyone, please cross first." However, this is the Toad Black River. Beneath the river resides the black claw toad. Be careful of their poison tongues, and you will be able to pass. Taoist Master Qing Lian slightly smiled. That smile of respectful invitation made people feel that it brimmed with a dagger chilling to the bone. However, that black claw toad will naturally be handled by this Taoist master and Ancestor Qianli behind you. You must be very careful. Su Xing, hold tight your wife and stay here, and then follow this Taoist master across together. Taoist Master Qinglian faintly said. Ancestor Qianli also called out to Feng Xianggu. That black lotus can only support 1 or 2 people. Safety being the purpose, your star generals had better return first. It will do for me to follow cousin. Zheng Yanran twitched her lips. Gong Sun Huang kissed Su Xing's cheek. Her body was feeble, and this black river's poison gas was vile, making her unwilling to stay. Su Xing cast an inquisitive gaze to Wu Xiyo. Wu Xiyo's cool and elegant eyes were saying, "Do not think you can do that." Su Xing shrugged his shoulders. He had wanted to say something when he suddenly heard the sound of something falling into water. The cultivator that had been sent flying by Ancestor Qianli had originally thought to step across this Toad Black River in a single spurt of energy. The beginning was rather smooth, but stepping on a lotus leaf after 100 meters, that lotus leaf could not sustain his weight and sunk. That poison water was seemingly 1,000 caddies heavy, for that cultivator that fell into the river unexpectedly could not struggle free in any way and desperately sunk before everyone's eyes. The expressions of all the cultivators present simultaneously changed. The cultivators that had originally wanted to move to the next lotus leaf momentarily stood still in terror as they looked at the two ancestors. A cultivator had wanted to retreat, and it was at this time that the two ancestors' true colors were finally revealed. That cultivator that had wanted to return was shook back by a palm from Ancestor Qianli. "Senior!" Everyone shouted in fright. For the next part, we thank everyone for their trouble finding a path. Ancestor Qianli gave an evil grin. Some of these Black River lotus leaves are incapable of supporting cultivators. We ask that everyone find a path that crosses the river. Several dozen cultivators changed expressions one after the other. These words of Ancestor Qianli's clearly showed he wanted to buy the path using the lives of the cultivators, to go personally test these, to step on top of these safe and sound naturally was passable while sinking naturally was a dead end. Although this type of method was very cruel, it nevertheless was the most effective method. Seniors are immensely powerful adepts, there is no need to be this difficult. Snap. A bold cultivator had wanted to use soft words to plead for a way out, but he had not yet finished speaking when Ancestor Qianli impatiently extended an arm and pointed. Several bolts of blooming water divine thunder flying swords appeared out of thin air, chopping off that cultivator's head. Everyone lost the color in their faces. Taoist Master Qing Lian had the cool eyes of a bystander, not caring at all. "What did you think we wanted you for? What are cultivations like yours even capable of?" Ancestor Qianli strangely laughed. Soon after, he asked, "Right now, you are to offer to this ancestor a portion of your time. Afterwards, this ancestor will not treat you unfairly. Any suggestions?" Absolute silence. Everyone simply stared at each other. At this time, they had chosen to sink. That cultivator's headless corpse still gurgled with blood. It went limp and collapsed where it was, the blood splashing over the ground. His end was displayed in their eyes. These sect ancestors from the start had planned this, so who would dare have objections? Although everyone was unwilling, they could only inwardly swallow bitter fruit. Could it be that we cannot go test which lotus flowers can support a person? Su Xing wrinkled his brow and asked. He somewhat disliked their methods. Ancestor Qianli's gaze brimmed with ridicule. "If you are capable, then go test them, so long as you can find a bridge." For the purpose of fairness, this Taoist master proposes for everyone to separately find a path, alternating your advance. This way we can avert casualties. Taoist Master Qing Lian slowly said. Everyone secretly fumed at these old farts. "Fairness, your mother. You frauds." The cultivators that had originally been taking joy in Su Xing's misfortune of contracting a trash star general genuinely wished they could substitute. Su Xing and Fang Xianggu had actually happened upon good fortune. Due to surprisingly being accepted by the two ancestors as disciples, it was for this reason they were not required to pathfind. However, Su Xing completely had no doubts that if these cultivators were to all die on the road, these two ancestors' so-called master and disciple camaraderie would become die for the sake of the master. Ancestor Qianli already began to call out the names of the cultivators one after another to go pathfind. A Galaxy late-stage male cultivator at this time hopped onto the 500th flower. In front of him were several dozen lotus flowers soaking on the Black River. From the surface, it was incomparably calm. He basically could not see concealed dangers. His eyes attentively gazed ahead, seemingly utilizing his divine sense to discern which of these lotus flowers could support his ate. For a long time, he did not step out. Seeing him this careful, Ancestor Qianli impatiently said, "Do not waste your thoughts. If we could see things, would we still have made you open a path? Do not squander our time. At this moment, you can only submit to the will of heaven. Everything depends on luck, hurry and go." The male cultivator grit his teeth. Shortly after, he chose a relatively larger lotus that was 50 paces away from him. The lotus flower was full, seemingly capable of holding some weight. Grasping a sword array, the cultivator pounced towards that lotus flower. Moving at this time over the Black River, he could only rely on his own body techniques. In the case these black lotuses sunk, then he simply could not drag himself away. In ordinary times, light movements body techniques could display surprising efficacy. Tada! 5. The male cultivator's 2 legs stepped onto that lotus leaf, and his face suddenly displayed an expression of pleasant surprise. Just as he was about to excitedly whoop a few times, he suddenly discovered that this lotus leaf was slowly sinking into the black river. His heart panicked. Eyeing the nearest black lotus leaf, he prepared to forcefully jump over. Putong. 6. The moment he exerted, the malicious words instantly sunk into the black river waters. The moment his body was splashed by water, he was incapable of mustering any strength. The person seemingly became 1,000 catty iron lump that sunk downwards. The male cultivator screamed in terror. Bastards, you despicable old bastards. Your servant will become a ghost that will never let you go. The male cultivator howled in despair. The flying sword his hand grasped attacked Ancestor Qianli. Ancestor Qianli was unconcerned. Several tens of flying swords had not yet flew before him when they clattered down into the river. That male cultivator's body had already been submerged in the blink of an eye. A galaxy late-stage cultivator had unexpectedly died as easily as blowing dust away. Su Xing was secretly fearful. When the other cultivator heard the male cultivator's words in the face of death, each and every one gnashed their teeth. They glared at Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian with hidden resentment. If they did not know that acting out would only result in even less suspenseful death, they would have already made a move. The 2 ancestors did not care. Gazing at them as if they were bugs, Ancestor Qianli sneered, "You go." A female cultivator had been pointed out. With grief across her entire face, she jumped to the spot the previous male cultivator stood. She pondered for a moment, and then she jumped to the nearest lotus leaf. Everyone stared attentively at her. When they saw the lotus leaf steadily support her weight, they sighed in relief. The female cultivator cried tears of joy, for she had a sort of feeling she had just escaped from calamity. Waifu, prepare to move in a moment. Su Xing squinted his eyes, executing sound transmission. The Wu Xiao, who had long already watched the 2 hypocritical old farts Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian with an ill mood went, N. One cultivator after another was treated as a pathfinding scapegoat by Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian, who were treated as bright lanterns giving directions. When they were halfway across the toad-black river, the black-clawed toads poked their heads out. These highly toxic monsters continuously hid within the water, or they sat upon lotus leaves, rolling their long tongues with thorny growths all over. If a cultivator were to be rolled in, that would be disastrous. Fortunately, the 2 great sex ancestors were not completely shameless. As per their earlier promise, they operated every sort of magic weapon and flying sword to attack these toads. The cultivations of supercluster middle stages against these black-clawed toads basically greatly alleviated the pressure on the other pathfinders, but this did not make the others feel grateful at all. It was possible all of the cultivators present wished to push these 2 ancestors into the Black River. The 2 ancestors were prudent. Not only did they walk at the very back, the light of the defensive magic weapons on their persons glinted like a protective shield shrouding their whole bodies. The cultivators relying on that bit of galaxy stage star energy fundamentally could not break through. Furthermore, Su Xing discerned that although Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian took every precaution against those black-clawed toads, their divine intents were nevertheless fixed onto each and every movement of everyone. Even Su Xing and Fang Xianggu were included. It seems this will not be easy to start. Wu Xiao softly chuckled. She could also see the precautions of the 2 great cultivators. One of these supercluster middle stage monsters was doable, but even Su Xing could not possibly have the slightest chance of victory against 2. Particularly in the case that Taoist Master Qing Lian's more than 360 extreme white-green lotus swords were to unleash their murderous desire, that imposing air was absolutely unstoppable in not just name, but also reality. They must die. Su Xing coldly chuckled. In order to not let the 2 ancestors behind doubt them, Su Xing embraced Wu Xiao's slender waist with one arm, feigning an intimate appearance. Oh, Hearing these sorts of words from a galaxy stage cultivator actually makes your servant surprised. For Su Xing's determination and confidence, she actually overlooked the intimate actions he made on her body. The cool and elegant girl said with a hint of playfulness, "Could it be that you disapprove of this method? Do you wish to uphold justice?" This sentence carried a bit of teasing. Su Xing scoffed. These two ancestors are this crafty, so the Toad Black River is a good opportunity to kill them. If we miss this chance, it will be even harder to accomplish. Seeing that this Black River had super heavy poison water, even Ancestor Qianli and the rest did not dare be careless. How could Su Xing miss this good of an opportunity to deal a fatal blow, let alone that their current actions and conduct in forcing the other scattered star cultivators to wish they could kill them? Su Xing completely did not have any misgivings about that. Do you have this self-confidence? If you make a mistake, you must know the consequences? Crossing 100 meters, Wu Xiao asked to be sure as she dropped onto a lotus leaf that the cultivator in front had verified. "Xiao, are you concerned about me?" Su Xing's eyes glinted. "Your servant is only concerned about Ingmei." Wu Xiao indifferently replied. "For Ingmei to have a friend like you is honestly pretty good." Su Xing laughed. Wu Xiao snorted. Glancing sideways at Su Xing, those cool and elegant eyes seemed to conveying, "Since you act as her master, then you had best not make Ing disappointed." Su Xing slightly smiled. Looking at the lotus leaf in front of him, he reached out his arm and suddenly placed Wu Xiao into a carry, leaping swiftly over. Her nephrite, warm fragrance was upon his chest. Wu Xiao's eyes stared blankly, nearly shouting out. This man was unexpectedly this brazen. The Wu Xiao who had been carried by a man this intimately for the first time was very resentful. "Do you feel your servant is easy to bully? What would I bully you for, waifu?" Su Xing hinted to beneath his foot. Wu Xiao looked downwards and spotted this black lotus was very narrow and could just hold the one person only. However, this black lotus appeared to be very odd, not at all like the ordinary lotus flowers but rather some sort of forbid dance specially arranged on the black water. Even with the weight of two people, the lotus leaf did not sink. "You go first, your servant does not need your concern." Wu Xiao's hand grabbed Su Xing's collar, and Su Xing felt that she's slightly nervous. "Since you are my wife, of course I cannot ignore you." Su Xing shook his head, in deadly earnest. "Indeed, you are very capable of saying pleasant words." Wu Xiao harumphed, tightly pursing her red lips. Behind him, Ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qin Lian closely followed. Spotting that intimate behavior between Su Xing and Wu Xiao, Ancestor Qianli was slightly displeased. Did this married couple think they were on a scenic tour, unexpectedly flirting with each other on this Black Toad River where every step was a disaster? He extended and waved his hand, killing several dozen black-clawed toads. Ancestor Qianli smiled insincerely at Taoist Master Qin Lian. The Taoist Master is indeed very fortunate, surprisingly recruiting such a star master. It seems that woman is extraordinarily cool and elegant, exceptional in temperament. Presumably, she is not a simple character either. Ancestor Qianli was somewhat envious. These words are wrong. Has the ancestor not seen his star general? Her star energy has been devoured. Using him for a star duel is simply sending him to die. Taoist Master Qin Lian shook his head. How could he compare to your star master? That fair-skinned gentleman is of extraordinary martial force. How could these scattered star cultivators also willingly bend to our sections? Ancestor Qianli gloomily said. Those sects were good. Many star generals possessed unimaginable egos. They were not at all willing to depend on sections. From their perspective, they could only rely on themselves to count as the genuine victor of the star duels. Right now, they ought to be shedding tears of gratitude. If it was not for our cover, their star duels would already have finished at this Black River. Taoist Master Qin Lian slightly smiled. Ancestor Qianli also laughed out loud. Right, this Taoist master still does not know what that star general of his is. Taoist Master Qin Lian remembered. Because she seemed to have been drained of star energy, he had forgotten to go inquire him. Although many of Liangshan continent's monsters did not participate in the star duels, they still were very interested in the identities of the star generals. Just ask when we have crossed, however, that brat is somewhat strange. You have to ask clearly once we cross the Toad Black River. Ancestor Qianli's eyes flashed ice cold. Has the ancestor been scared stiff by that purple thunder monster? Taoist Master Qing Lian faintly smiled. A galaxy early-stage cultivator can stir up some big waves, but not everyone is like the purple thunder monster. Careful or you shall suffer a mishap. Ancestor Qianli snorted. Taoist Master Qing Lian stroked his beard and smiled. Several hours later, everyone had crossed several thousand meters into the Toad Black River. Along the way, more than 10 cultivators had become the Black River's watery ghosts to be forever buried within. Gradually, everyone was close to numb. Having already seen the other shore, they could not help but speed up. Though their eyes saw it, they had not seen the Toad 5 Poisons array point at all. However, at this time, everyone was not in the mood to care about this. With Toad Black River this large, this array point could not be said to have been already found by the cultivators in the other directions. Being forced along by 2 ancestors at this pace, all the cultivators were resentful to the bone. When Fang Xangu and Zheng Yanran thrillingly arrived at the other side of the Black River, they also thoroughly breathed out a sigh of relief, beckoning at Su Xing with a wave. When Su Xing saw, he only took 100 paces before stopping on a lotus leaf. Su Xing looked back and hinted with his eyes. Although she was somewhat unwilling, Wu Xiao also knew that right now was not the time to bicker about the details. Suddenly, she half knelt, and the harm star style that did not bother about trifles made Su Xing very odd. Originally from his perspective, Wu Xiao's cool elegance was categorized as that sort of unreasonable style. However, she actually frequently made people surprised. Speaking from one perspective, fighters that could change according to the situation were especially frightening, as worthy of the star that became the last generation's overlord. Waifu, do you want to vomit again? Su Xing feigned concern as he shouted. The ancestor Qianli and Taoist Master Qing Lian behind them soon after caught up. What is the matter? Taoist Master Qing Lian asked. The cultivators on the riverbank also sent confused gazes. Just at this moment, the eyes of both Su Xing and Wu Xiao flashed a cold light of tacit understanding. At nearly the same time, they instantly turned around and launched an attack. As for their degree of mutual understanding, if they were not husband and wife, perhaps no one would have believed it. The expressions of the 2 ancestors greatly changed. Because they had neared the shore, they had become relaxed and unconsciously lowered their alertness. Now, this just happened to give Su Xing his chance. The weapon in his hand stabbed straight. Let alone that the supercluster star cultivators had superb cultivations and exceptional powers, the power of their realms was stronger by 3 levels. However, the majority of star cultivators all had a fatal weakness, and that was the close quarters that Su Xing so very much was familiar with. Su Xing whipped out Heaven Tearing and slashed at them while Wu Xiao's Noble Frost Demonic Lotus also finally had the chance to taste blood. The 2 ancestors were also worthy of their titles as the consecrated supreme grade ancestral masters of their sections. The defensive magic weapons on their bodies instantly activated, blocking this fatal strike. Relying on their resounding magic energy to break through was not that easy. The swiftly arriving Golden Sword's rainbow already shot violently forth, striking violently head-on. A green light erupted, and a dark green barrier floated at a place several zhang about Taoist Qing Lian's head. In the instant the golden rainbow struck the barrier, an explosive sound burst forth. Although this barrier flickered incessantly, after a moment, it had emerged unscathed. At nearly the same time, more than 300 extreme white-green lotus swords launched at this moment. In the blink of an eye, they became an immense, blue-green python pounced out from the light, ferociously approaching Su Xing's golden sword net. Immediately, green and gold light rays interweaved together, occasionally rumbling. Taoist Master Qing Lian's expression slightly changed. He gazed at Su Xing, full of disbelief. His more than 300 extreme white-green lotus swords unexpectedly had been contended to a standstill by 12 golden ones. This actually was outside of his imagination. Su Xing's golden flying sword screamed, and dragon shadows emerged. One look was enough to know this was out of the ordinary, and while Taoist Master Qing Lian was greatly alarmed, his hand nevertheless steady. "Disciple, what are you doing?" Taoist Master Qing Lian hastily struck several hand seals to launch a sword array from his flying swords. From the originally entangled and jumbled green and golden light, a large expanse concentrated at the middle. Suddenly, a massive sword approximately 20 to 30 zhang appeared out of nowhere. After several slashes that were seemingly almost like lightning, the heaven-tearing gold swords wailed and were immediately broken apart. With a supercluster middle-stage cultivator's cultivation, even Su Xing's immemorial sword chant could not possibly go block it. The sword array activated, and it truly made people change expressions. Then, the giant sword slashed in passing without a trace of politeness. There was an abundance of power that could cut Su Xing into flying ash. Seeing this scene, a cold smile flashed across Su Xing's face, as if he had already anticipated this. His wrist turned. A sparkling and translucent jadeite branch appeared in Su Xing's hand. That jadeite branch's spiritual power was plentiful, and its auspicious light of 1,000 rays gave people a sort of exceedingly refined feeling that compelled people to pay their respects. The surroundings immediately rolled with green light, the aura endless. The miraculous Bodhi tree. Seeing this item, Taoist Master Qing Lian's self-confident expression abruptly changed. "You deceive and destroy your ancestors, your fathers, the purple thunder monster." Su Xing swiped with the miraculous Bodhi tree. He felt his whole body's star energy was nearly sucked dry, and instantly he was completely powerless. The miraculous Bodhi tree sent out a jadeite blue light. This light was resembled clouds and smoke. The divine light swept over, freezing the more than 300 extreme white-green lotus swords within. However, since Su Xing's current cultivation was far from being able to completely wield the miraculous Bodhi tree, even his entire body's worth of star energy could not shake Taoist Master Qing Lian's life-cast flying sword. This Taoist Master Qing Lian was unexpectedly so valiant. Consecutively eating 3 flowers of 1,000 bells immortals dew, Su Xing swiped 3 times within the span of a breath. The extreme white-green lotus swords finally were completely sent flying. This Taoist Master Qing Lian was worthy of being called the Tai Sword Sect's ancestral master grade. To be able to practice his cultivation to this stage, which cultivator was not as astute as a demon. However, Su Xing using Galaxy early-stage cultivation to unexpectedly counterattack made these astute and crafty great cultivators greatly surprised. They felt this was unbelievable and were caught unprepared. Even so, Taoist Master Qing Lian still reacted extremely quickly. Hearing "Purple Thunder Monster," Taoist Master Qing Lian's heart was suddenly infuriated. In practically the blink of an eye, after green light flashed in his hand, an object suddenly appeared. Verdant and glistening, it unexpectedly was a seemingly tiny miniature mountain. Su Xing was inwardly grave. Having previously seen Ancestor Huai Mu's giant mountain magic weapon, Su Xing naturally knew the might of this type of magic weapon. While controlling the heaven-tearing sword array to attack, he heard Taoist Master Qing Lian have a fit of violent fury. That green peak was flung towards the sky, and immediately, this mountain displayed flowing jade light. Its bulk violently swelled, instantly increasing to a size of several zhang, and it still continued to grow bigger. Su Xing saw the situation firsthand. Without the slightest hesitation, he pointed at the green peak. After the 12 golden heaven-tearing swords roared with a dragon's cry, they became a golden dragon, directly shooting towards the small mountain in the sky. It violently fell upon the mountain, slashing into the top of the green peak. With an enormous boom, rock fragments wildly flew, light extensively released. The golden rays and jade light interweaved and collided together. The Tai Sword Sect were all extremely good in giant mountain-type magic weapons, especially so with Taoist Master Qing Lian. His Green Lotus Peak was a prehistoric spirit treasure. Although it could not compare to the miraculous Bodhi tree, in his hands, It was an absolutely terrifying item. It was not unknown how many powerful enemy demon beasts it helped him kill, and it was only for this reason that he bestowed himself the name Taoist Master Qing Lian. This green lotus peak truly was enormous, seemingly an actual mountain. Upon the mountaintop, jasper jade Taoist temples and cloud palaces could even be seen. There were even silhouettes of people moving, so it seemed this was a world unto itself. Unbelievable! The green lotuses on the green lotus peak blossomed, and black jade lights overlapped, slowly and unhurried. Su Xing narrowed his eyes. His heart was somewhat startled that Taoist Master Qing Lian would also have assets like this. On the green peak's top portion, the dark light flourished and wound into a battle with heaven tearing. Originally, Su Xing had thought he could cleave this mountain in two, but evidently, that was not possible. The peak's green lotus flowers transformed into completely moss-green fires that struck onto the heaven-tearing swords. They surged with a resplendent green light, burning upon the heaven-tearing swords. Hearing a dragon's weight, it was somewhat unable to withstand it. Su Xing was greatly surprised, and Taoist Master Qing Lian also was shocked. That green lotus karma fire, too, on this spirit treasure would have already burnt a galaxy cultivator's flying sword away long ago. His opponent's flying sword could unexpectedly force itself through. Taoist Master Qing Lian could also discern that heaven tearing was not ordinary, for it was shockingly a rarely seen flying sword of golden dragon scales. No wonder he could destroy that many cultivators. He unexpectedly had such a powerful flying sword. And at this time, the peak inside the green light had already expanded to a size of more than 100 zhang. It was identical to a genuine mountain. Even if Su Xing was bold and unperturbed, in witnessing this lofty tower of a green peak in front of him, his eyelids could not help but violently jump twice. His expression became even more serious. He could guess without thinking. If he was actually struck by this peak, whatever defensive barrier he had absolutely could not obstruct this thing. He would instantly be ground to dust. Su Xing's giant heavenly tearing sword again cut the summit several times, but just the green fire was difficult. It was no use. Courting death, Taoist Master Qing Lian was determined to make this purple thunder monster watch carefully. After a sinister smile, one hand swept towards the green lotus peak and struck a hand seal inside. The green lotus peak whooshed. In the next instant, by an instantaneous movement escape art, it unexpectedly appeared above Su Xing. Then, it wildly pressed downwards. Toad Black River was 1,000 li vast, yet Su Xing did not flee. If he fled away, that would be truly dangerous. Su Xing grasped the miraculous Bodhi tree and repeatedly brushed with it. Washua, washua, washwashua. 3. Treasure light glittered, and the green divine light rolled like a sea of clouds. The multicolored light and auspicious air gradually rose and wrapped the green lotus peak within. The two's cultivation had an extremely large difference. It was anyone else relying on Galaxy early stage to shake up a supercluster middle stage cultivator's magic weapon, they would certainly be ridiculed by others and believed to be daydreaming. However, Su Xing relied on the suicidal wild shaking of the miraculous Bodhi tree. He ate more than 10 flowers of Thousand Bells Immortal's dew and finally broke through the green lotus peak in the blink of an eye. The green lotus flames had been blown out by the miraculous Bodhi tree's clear light, and the summit had also been stalled tight by the clear clouds and auspicious light. The originally fully self-confident Taoist Master Qing Lian was greatly shocked. He simply felt the matter that happened before him was inconceivable. He completely did not expect Su Xing would be this wanton in his shaking the miraculous Bodhi tree. Restricting the green lotus peak, Su Xing then acted without thinking, forming his sword chant. The heaven-tearing sword array flew into the wind, the golden dragon's shadow dividing mid-flight. Once again, it became a several hundred chi-long golden sword chi. Hiding the sky and covering the earth, after it descended, an instant made Taoist Master Qing Lian trapped inside the flock of swords. The more than 300 extreme white-green lotus swords at this time flashed green light without end, the sword chi fiercely struggling with the heaven-tearing swords. Su Xing swiped the miraculous Bodhi tree. He first made the extreme white-green lotus swords fall back, and then an arc of lightning suddenly jumped from below. Su Xing actually seized the chance to send his figure violently to attack from his front, in order to get this done quickly. Taoist Master Qing Lian was startled. When he raised a hand to execute an action, Su Xing's arm abruptly stretched forth. His two eyes glimpsed crimson, and this made Taoist Master Qing Lian feel fear. He looked and saw the 5 fingers of Su Xing's palm had sword traces moving. Closing his fist, Su Xing stabbed into him like lightning. That 5-fingered claw screamed with a bone-piercing chill. Unexpectedly, it was Taoist Master Qing Lian who felt danger. Taoist Master Qing Lian was startled. A green shield hovered in front of him, almost psychically moving of its own accord to protect its master. After a white light flashed, it blocked the old man's rear, for a palm chopped onto the green shield. When Taoist Master Qing Lian saw this, his face showed some delight. The opponent unexpectedly used his bare hands to attack his front, truly courting death for himself. However, Taoist Master Qing Lian evidently forgot why Su Xing was called the Purple Thunder Monster. Bang! A muffled sound resounded, and a long concentrated Purple Mansion Immortal's thunder tore the green shield to pieces. Taoist Master Qing Lian was stunned, only feeling his front become dazzled and his chest go cold. Su Xing's devil-like 5-fingered demonic claw pressed against his chest, the movement incomparably gentle. This was the first time that Taoist Master Qing Lian had been scared stiff by a galaxy stage cultivator. He had not yet uttered a sound when, with its zila, the tip that was sharper than a sword directly seized Taoist Qing Lian and violently tore him down. This was the 9 Claws True Dragon art that Su Xing obtained from Long Outyin. Relying on the extreme sincerity soul technique skills, Su Xing cultivated for a night with some small progress. This type of claw technique's surprise attack could easily rip artifact protections to shreds. Even if Taoist Master Qing Lian had a powerful star energy protecting him, he would still be pushed back a few steps by this. And these steps were what Su Xing wanted. How ridiculous! Taoist Master Qing Lian scowled in anger. He was about to do something when suddenly he saw Su Xing reveal a victorious sneer. Taoist Master Qing Lian felt his feet touch nothing. He looked downwards, and underneath his feet was the super heavy black water. The Taoist master was horrified. But if it was the normal Su Xing alone handling this sort of apex stage supercluster middle stage monster, he definitely would not possibly have a chance. But the reason why Su Xing dared to use this moment to act was to exploit the Toad Black River's properties. This sort of 1,000 caddies poison water was something even supercluster cultivators would dread. Su Xing's series of lightning speed surprise attacks were not to kill him, but rather to strike him into the black water. Taoist Master Qing Lian screamed and fell into the black water. The black water bubbled and wrapped around Taoist Master Qing Lian. The old man's body was like a heavy cauldron that could not help but sink. The treasure light on Taoist Master Qing Lian erupted, continuously lifting star energy. However, how could Su Xing give him a chance? The miraculous Bodhi tree shook once more, breaking Taoist Master Qing Lian's magic. This threw Taoist Master Qing Lian completely into despair. This sect and you cannot coexist. The Taoist Master Qing Lian's previous calm and relaxed attitude was entirely gone at this moment as he madly shouted. Very quickly, he was only ahead, but this old man was honestly incredible to strenuously hold out to climb out. Gong Xuanhuan suddenly emerged and stepped on the top of Taoist Master Qing Lian's head. This was just like the last straw that broke the camel's back. Taoist Master Qing Lian completely submerged. Before he faced death's door, he saw the girl's 2 delicate feet float inexplicably several inches above the Black River. It was then he finally knew what Su Xing's star general was. That was not trash, she was a monster. Leisure Star Dragon in the Clouds Gong Sun Xing. Leaving behind a muffled sentence brimming with unreconciled resentment, Taoist Master Qing Lian at once sunk into the Black River. This calm and easy great cultivator perhaps had never thought in any way that he would die so sullenly. Following his death, The more than 300 extreme white-green lotus swords became masterless objects that plummeted one after the other. Su Xing threw out the weapon removal scroll that Tang Lianxin supported him with. It stored these extreme white-green lotus swords, and although the spiritual power had already greatly decreased, it could be refined once again when turned over to little sister Tang. That spirit treasure green cloud peak, 5, entered the weapon removal scroll. Taoist Master Qing Lian and his astral bag sunk together into the towed Black River. This was actually somewhat of a shame. Abruptly, there was a scream. Ancestor Qianli's figure on the other side heavily was sent flying. Wu Xiao's martial force was outstanding, and how could Ancestor Qianli be her opponent in close-quarters battle when he was caught off guard? On such narrow lotus leaves, Ancestor Qianli completely could not display his powers and had been firmly suppressed as he stared blankly at Taoist Master Qing Lian sink into the Black River. Then, Wu Xiao's noble frost demonic lotus broke his blooming water divine thunder, sending Ancestor Qianli flying with one hand. Ancestor Qianli fell onto a lotus leaf. His luck could be considered good, unexpectedly having not sunk. Harm star Wusong. How could you have? Ancestor Qianli gazed at Su Xing in shock, feeling his mind was in chaos. The Harm star pilgrim unexpectedly became a star master's wife, but why would Ancestor Qianli dare even think even a bit on this? Hastily, he jumped past several lotus leaves and leapt to the shore. This guy's fortune honestly was good to the extreme. Those several dozens of black-colored lotus leaves that had not been checked had supported his weight. Su Xing was secretly anything but reassured. He chased with Wu Xiao for the kill, and when they reached the shore, Ancestor Qianli turned his head to spot the two pouncing at him. He was scared pale, and stamping his foot, he used a thousandly divine light escape, 6, technique to escape 1,000 li forwards. The magnificent supercluster middle stage cultivator unexpectedly was being engaged by a galaxy early stage cultivator in a deadly pursuit, which was unprecedented in all of Liangshan. After passing 5 Poisons Mountain's third poison, Black Toad River, the remaining cultivators including Fang Xianggu were no more than 10. The remaining cultivators that had just escaped from calamity were all tired and lingering on the shore with their last breaths, secretly cursing. Then, Su Xing and Wu Xiao's sudden hostility towards the supercluster stage old cultivators stupefied them. By the time Taoist Master Qing Lian submerged into the Black River, Ancestor Qianli's divine light escape left everyone completely unable to return to their senses. They thought their minds were in confusion. Su Xing and Wu Xiao hastily chased, but the divine light instantly disappeared from their eyes. Neither did they look at it anymore. What happened just now? A cultivator asked in a daze. Purple thunder monster. We are not blind, are we? There was a commotion, and everyone showed shocked and inconsolable expressions. They looked at each other in dismay, their whole bodies trembling. I seem to have heard them say purple thunder monster? But we did not spot Lin Chong. And that has to be the noble frost demonic lotus of Wusong? How could she be the purple thunder monster's wife? All the cultivators' minds were completely in chaos. It must be the purple thunder monster. Fuck, he is too powerful. Other than he, what other galaxy cultivator can get rid of a supercluster ancestor? Furthermore, Ancestor Qianli has also fled. Truly inconceivable. The purple thunder monster is unexpectedly this unfathomable. It seems he truly did get rid of old monster extreme clarity. He deserves to be called the purple thunder monster. Even that Harm star has become his wife. I feel that who the purple thunder monster signed was not Lin Chong, but actually Wusong. Everyone could not control themselves as they bustled into a discussion. Some people currently still were incapable of recovering their state of mind. The purple thunder monster in the Azure Dragon territory was an impressive and famous monster and devil, but at this very moment, everyone that had been forced by the two ancestors only felt the purple thunder monster was the purple thunder saint. They more or less even had a sort of urge to bow in worship and reverence to him. Fang Xianggu also looked in shock at his cousin, fair-skinned gentleman Zheng Yanran. Cousin, what do we do about this? Jing Yanran was far calmer than everyone. She wore a frivolous smile, her eyes twinkling with a radiance as she muttered to herself, "Elder sister Wu Xiao is unexpectedly the harmed star pilgrim Wu Song. This truly makes little sister expand her horizons. Of course we must properly send elder sister and elder brother some greetings." Zheng Yanran's large sleeves waved, and Jade Dragon Misfortune Snow was grasped in her hand. "Yanran, you absolutely cannot." Fong Xengu promptly blocked her. "That is the harmed star pilgrim Wu Song and the purple thunder monster. Furthermore, your servant also owes them a favor." Regardless of what sort of reason, Fong Xengu was not at all willing to star duel with Su Xing. Jing Yanran rolled her eyes at him. "Cousin, you misunderstand. Did you not see that old fart flee? Of course we are helping elder sister Xiao kill that old bastard." The fair-skinned gentleman laughed into her sleeve. When Fong Xingu heard this, he sighed in relief and wiped his cold sweat. Thinking about it, it was obvious. To rapidly dispatch Taoist Master Qing Lian and scare Ancestor Qianli away, he believed 10 of himself could not do the same. "Cousin, want to star duel?" Zheng Yanran giggled. Fong Xingu shook his head. "We had better first go help the Su Xing married couple." "And go." The remaining 6 or 7 cultivators blankly sat on the shore, staring at each other. What do we do now? With the supercluster ancestor dead, they no longer had a threat, while at the same time, they did not have an objective. To have them go obtain the 10,000-year gu? Everyone present had the self-knowledge to know what was important. They did not dare have that sort of thought to steal food from a supervoid stage tiger's den. Are the others not breaking the forbid dance? Wait until the forbid dance breaks, then we had better quickly leave this place. A cultivator shook his head. 5 poisons mountains. 5 poisons were pervasive. Just walking wasted enormous energy. The group sat cross-legged in meditation, recovering star energy on one hand while waiting for an opportunity on the other. The others deeply held this to be true. The back of 5 poisons mountain still had 2 poisons, and it was unknown what degree of danger was there. Charging any further was honestly too foolish. That purple thunder monster is unexpectedly this formidable. No wonder he has killed that many supercluster cultivators. I wonder what sort of person he is? He has even signed Wu Song. And I hear he also has Lin Chong. Could he be a star master sent down by Maiden Mountain? Everyone leisurely idled, taking turns discussing together. The Su Xing who had just got rid of Taoist Master Qing Lian and scared off Ancestor Qianli was too shocking to their impressions. In this lifetime, perhaps it would be hard to forget. To be only galaxy middle stage cultivation, even if his star general was any more brilliant, as far as they were concerned, they had been given a big scare. However, everyone applauded the purple thunder monster. Wu Song claims to be his wife. It seems these 9th-generation star duels sure enough are different. The 10 great sects each are shams. Your servant feels that the purple thunder monster exterminating them is very wonderful. After we get out, we must properly inform our other fellow about the true face of the 10 great sects. All of the cultivators grit their teeth, each clenching their fists in resentment, their eyes giving off fire. If it was not for the purple thunder monster beating back these 2 ancestors, they naturally knew this trip would be certain death. Someday in the future, the Azure Dragon Territory's scattered star cultivators had the rumors of the 10 great sects' conduct and deeds of this time. At that time, the entire Azure Dragon Territory was shocked. Hundreds of millions of scattered star cultivators viewed the 10 great sects as if they were maggots. At that time, the purportedly awe-inspiring 10 great sects became something everyone in the Azure Dragon Territory would not raise their heads for, something scorned by all. They had a bad reputation, while on the contrary, the purple thunder monster's popularity became the first in the Azure Dragon Territory to surpass Emperor Liang's. Considered a god by scattered star cultivators, they prostrated in worship. Of course, this was all something to be taken up later. Su Xing and Wu Xiao chased to kill after Ancestor Qianli. Su Xing certainly would not let this old fart go. If they waited until he joined up with the other cultivators, the result probably would far from good. Fortunately, this 5 poisons mountain was saturated with poison gas, The forbid dance boundless. Ancestor Qianli had no opportunities, however, his thousandly divine light escape genuinely was incredible, disappearing right in front of them in the blink of an eye. Approximately an hour later, Su Xing and Wu Xiao arrived at the entrance to a canyon. This ravine's cliffs were scarlet like blood, a thoroughly surging red. Miasma rose in wisps, rolling up the reeking stench of blood. One look showed it contained extreme poison. Inside the battle-scarred valley, there were countless craters and cracks. From within the cracks, blood-colored miasma bubbles occasionally bubbled forth. The warping red fog made the canyon appear to squirm, as if it was a gigantic centipede, and just in front of the path to the canyon, there were clear traces that someone had passed through. Clearly, Ancestor Qianli's escape technique left these. 5 poisons. 4th poison, Bloody Centipede Valley. Su Xing wrinkled his brow. The scene in front of him honestly was very uncomfortable. Even with the detoxification pearl inside his body, he felt his heart and lungs were being suffocated. His blood seemingly was about to be frozen, let alone that this was even worse for others. However, this environment was also fine, for he presumed that Ancestor Qianli could not run that far either. "Waifu, you wait here and wait for me?" Su Xing said. "Do you think you can handle a supercluster middle-stage cultivator alone?" Wu Xiao looked disdainfully at him out of the corner of her eye. She waved her hand. A white light flashed, and the white and black unicorn tiger appeared. The white tiger's entire body glowed with a snowlight. The 7th-rank spirit beast's imposing aura was not covered by the red magic fog and was being dispersed. Wu Xiao straddled upon the white tiger, her black hair flowing. Su Xing's eyes shone, and he completely did not hesitate to jump up and hold Wu Xiao's slim waist between his arms. Wu Xiao was blank, having not foreseen that Su Xing would unexpectedly climb on without asking. She coldly said, "Your servant did not allow you on at all. Don't be so stingy, hurry and go chase Ancestor Qianli," Su Xing said. This man stuck to her back, making Wu Xiao somewhat fidgety, especially that hand that unexpectedly embraced her back. "Behave yourself," Wu Xiao coldly snorted. She read out an incantation, and her eyes immediately glowed. The white and black unicorn tigers similarly reacted. It gave a low roar, charging into Bloody Centipede Valley. They could taste the flavor of the red miasma, which frantically rolled. Wu Xiao single-handedly held the double-headed sword Noble Frost Demonic Lotus. The point of snow amid the ink black on the sword tip whirled out a light that encircled the white and black unicorn tiger's entire surroundings. The white light ripped apart the red mist, the tiger growls endless. Every kind of red poison grass grew all over Bloody Centipede Valley, with some shrubbery higher than the knees. Sitting obediently on the white tiger, Su Xing helped himself to using the flying sword to mow some away that he could bring back to Insuin to see whether or not she could concoct a few poisons or antidotes and such. Suddenly, a shuffling sound like ocean waves seemingly resounded. The white and black unicorn tiger stopped, continuously growling. They saw that from between the small cracks in the cliffs, countless gigantic centipedes with their whole slender bodies seemingly drenched in blood crawl out, their mouths spitting red miasma. Their 100 feet were confusing, and they released hisses. They were those bloody centipedes. The white and black unicorn tiger's tiger claws slapped, slapping a swathe of them to death. The bloody centipede's mouth spat red fog, the venom linking into a downpour. It covered and struck upon the light barrier that Wu Xiao constructed. Due to the amount actually being too great, the light cover tottered on the edge of collapse. The white and black unicorn tiger leapt, not stopping as it charged, but these bloody centipedes were completely fearless. Their venomous fangs snapped, their 100 feet simultaneously tore. As the proverb says, enough ants can bite an elephant to death. Even if it was a 7th-rank spirit beast, it could not bear the assault of this many bloody centipedes. Rushing past several thousand meters, the white and black unicorn tigers stood still without advancing. When Su Xing saw this, he brought out heaven tearing and wildly slashed to sweep everything away. Even the golden sword's shadow was like a golden hurricane that blew past. Several dozen bloody centipedes were blown over, and Wu Xiao also dismounted her fierce tiger to sweep away. The black demonic lotus blossomed, and the snow light was glimpsed. Wherever the harmed star pilgrim passed, the bloody centipedes on both sides were flipped away one after the other, showering a rain of blood. At this time, Gongsun Huang also appeared on Su Xing's shoulders. She blinked her eyes, gazing at the boundless sea of blood. That ancient pine-brand sword appeared in her hand with a multicolored light. The girl's hand fiercely waved, making a spell-casting movement. They suddenly saw a storm blow from her surroundings. These storm winds unleashed 10 similarly sized green storms that spun endlessly like whirlpools in the valley. The canyons inside was violent with a storm, and the killed bloody centipedes screamed with hisses. The hundreds of thousands of centipedes were rolled into the clouds, and the storm promptly became a fresh red. Those red mists were also blown away. Star magic. 2. Wind rolls the clouds. 3. When the storm stopped, the bloody centipedes in Su Xing's surroundings were all turned over. Apparently, they sensed this magic's power, and the bloody centipedes fled into their cracks out of fear. Little Huang, nicely done. Su Xing praised, rubbing her head. Gongsun Huang hummed. With the dragon in the clouds, Gongsun Huang's star magic, everyone was more relaxed. Although Gongsun Huang had not yet completely recovered, even unable to kill these bloody centipedes, she still could easily sweep them away 500-600 meters. These bloody centipedes were extremely afraid. A little while after, the sounds of battle rang from the front. They saw an old man currently in a tangle with a gigantic centipede. Su Xing stared, and his eyes suddenly shot a cold light. He was Ancestor Qianli. The giant centipede that Ancestor Qianli confronted was even more enormous than the bulk of bloody centipedes. Blood markings fully spread over its entire body like a person's meridians. Its mouth emitted wisps of a kind of bizarre blood poison as it battled with Ancestor Qianli. The supercluster middle stage Ancestor Qianli seemed to be using all of his strength to attack. Several dozen flying swords endlessly twisted to attack, blooming water divine thunder struck the blood wisps, and several magic weapons unceasingly tore open the centipede's body to quickly kill it. Blood Jade Centipede? Su Xing was stunned, for the Blood Jade Centipede was the supreme grade poison centipede of the 5 poison centipedes category. The blood wisps and blood fog it released were extremely powerful. Ordinary magic weapons would very easily be corrupted. This type of centipede's blood wisps could be used to refine polluted magic weapons with surprising efficacy. No wonder Ancestor Qianli was reluctant to let it go. Su Xing gestured with his hand, and the 12 heaven-tearing swords transformed into a golden thread. Loudly and clearly crying, a golden rainbow disappeared with a twinkle. The flying sword instantly appeared in front of Ancestor Qianli. Ancestor Qianli was secretly astonished, for how could these two have chased after him so quickly? Seeing that white and black unicorn tiger, his pupils shrunk. Unable to care more about that blood jade centipede, he then at the same time brought out a completely blue Rui too, and the Rui's treasure light erupted to block the heaven-tearing golden sword. Then, Ancestor Qianli shouted, his blooming water divine thunder transforming into a watercolored dragon that attacked Su Xing. His blooming water divine thunder ability was unknown amounts more brilliant than Ancestor Bailey's. Su Xing sneered to himself, and several purple lotus flowers simultaneously launched over. The blooming water divine thunder and the purple lotuses slammed into each other. The blue thunder and purple thunder immediately shook this centipede valley. Ancestor Qianli had originally watched Su Xing unexpectedly want to compete against the divine thunder he staked all on with secret delight. Using his supercluster middle stage magic energy to handle a galaxy early stage cultivator's divine thunder, he would still have enough to spare, but he had never thought his blooming water divine thunder ability was unexpectedly incapable of seizing the dominant position. How could this be? Ancestor Qianli was shocked. Hurriedly forming hand seals, several bolts of star energy poured into the divine thunder. The blooming water divine thunder changed shape into a dragon thunder that repeatedly roared, instantly tearing into the purple thunder's binding. Su Xing sneered. He suddenly waved his hand, and a purple robe draped itself on his body. This robe's purple clouds were propitiously wound around him, the auspicious light surrounding him. At first glance, Su Xing was just like a purple star adept, with a kind of imposing air that compelled others to lower their gazes. This was the earthly fiend-grade astral treasure, Purple Domain Robe. This astral treasure could make cultivated true qi increase its effectiveness, especially in making control of the purple star transforming qi even more smooth and easy. He flicked his fingers consecutively. Several dozen purple lotus flowers unhurriedly blossomed and advanced. The purple star transforming qi of the Su Xing that donned the purple domain robes immediately reached the true star realm, blending together with the blooming water divine thunder into a new thunder magic, the purple mansion immortal's thunder that was a level higher than blooming water divine thunder. And with Su Xing's profound magic energy, the three factors together handling Ancestor Qianli's blooming water divine thunder naturally was not out of the question. Purple thunder immortal's magic kill. Su Xing shouted, forming hand seals consecutively. The several dozen purple lotus flowers broke open the blooming water divine thunder. A few among them burst towards Ancestor Qianli, however their power diminished when they arrived before him, having been scattered by Ancestor Qianli's wave. This ancestor's blooming water divine thunder also could not be underestimated. Purple thunder monster. Ancestor Qianli shouted in disbelief. Just what is your background? Your servant is here. If you wish to kill me, then hurry over. Su Xing curled his 10 fingers together, and several bolts of purple lightning struck over. You truly anger this ancestor. A tiny galaxy early stage dares to be this impudent. Ancestor Qianli nearly went mad with rage. Never before was there a galaxy early stage cultivator that could be this impudent without relying on a star general. A tearing sound. The blood jade centipede at this time spat out wisps of blood that destroyed Ancestor Qianli's magic weapon. Old thief, 3, accept death. A white shadow at this moment had already rushed through layers of obstructions to attack. Wu Xiao rose from the white and black unicorn tiger, the noble frost demonic lotus executing a jump slash against Ancestor Qianli. Her delicate figure was breathtaking as a sword. How could Ancestor Qianli dare stand off against Wu Song? Looking at that blood jade centipede, he could only grit his teeth and give up on it. He activated the thousandly divine light escape and immediately fled, the speed terrifyingly swift. Several hundred meters away, Ancestor Qianli coldly shouted, "Truly what a good Wu Song, unexpectedly becoming the purple thunder monster's wife. To speak of this with others is truly a joke. You think you still can walk away alive?" Wu Xiao coldly said. Just as Ancestor Qianli wanted to say something, a silhouette suddenly flashed beside him, and Su Xing had shockingly attacked to his front. So fast. Unexpectedly daring to come receive death alone. Ancestor Qianli had been baffled, angry to the extreme that he contrarily smiled, his face full of malevolence. He opened his mouth, and 3 bolts of water thunder sprayed forth. Surprisingly, these were 3 blooming water divine thunders that were kept in his mouth, each just like a small sword. The blooming water divine thunder flying swords generally were of 2 types. One type was formed purely using blooming water divine thunder. This sword looked like a flying sword, but in fact, it was the blooming water divine thunder itself, minus the flying sword's strength and ferocity in killing or injuring. The second type was just like Su Xing's purple star transforming qi that fused with his own powers, but to fuse a flying sword was extremely difficult. It required very pure materials, and then they needed to pass through life-cast powers refinement before the task could finally begin. In the case that this succeeded, that indeed was something more powerful than a life-cast flying sword. These 3 small swords originally were only approximately an inch in size, like water droplets, but they circled around their master's body in the blink of an eye, their forms suddenly swelling madly to approximately a qi in length. They became 3 zhang long blue water rainbows that circled unfixed in the air. The blooming water divine thunder lights on the swords leapt, launching a net of lightning. Su Xing saw his opponent use a blooming water divine thunder ability flying sword. Raising one hand with a puchi, a purple-colored fiery and smoke-like sphere the size of a fist suddenly appeared in his palm. The purple clouds gurgled and emitted a sort of cutting sound. This was Purple Cloud True Star. The purple fireball supported on his palm lightly trembled, and then it suddenly ruptured. The purple fireball unexpectedly exploded in his hand. The purple clouds wafted in the air and gathered into a half-chi-sized purple bird. Its mouth released a crisp bird cry. Go! Su Xing fiercely pointed his finger at the opponent. The purple bird immediately flapped its two wings, transforming into a purple light that violently shot over. Ancestor Qianli saw that Su Xing unexpectedly wanted to contend against himself. His face sunk and his heart was immediately furious. This purple thunder monster honestly was too condescending, not using a single magic weapon. He relied only on an odd purple-colored bird, and he wanted to stop his own flower essence sword. His heart angered to the extreme, Ancestor Qianli contrarily smiled. He said nothing further as his 10 fingers flew through hand seals, determined to use his most powerful sword chant from the very beginning. He seized on the chance that Wu Xiao did not act and that Lin Chong was not present to first destroy the purple thunder monster in one attack before putting them off to later. The 3 blue lights above his head gave a burst of a clear dragon-like cry. In an instant, they disappeared in midair, fading in and out, like silk weaving. This thing seemingly of lightning and water appeared in front of Ancestor Qianli, just as it had transformed into a line of light. Fine to the extreme, it had several zhang of length. While the blue light linked together and flickered, connecting streaks of lightning bolts appeared, instantly forming more than 100 densely packed sword threads. It appeared gorgeous and dazzling, glittering to the extreme. Sword chi thread transformation? Su Xing wrinkled his brow, for he actually was not accustomed to sword chi thread transformation. So long as their cultivation was somewhat brilliant, cultivators could all achieve it. However, the current Ancestor Qianli's sword thread was very strange, as if it was a spider web. Su Xing did not dare be careless. He immediately struck several hand seals, and the purple fire bird's thunderlight flashed. Kill. At this time, Ancestor Qianli coldly laughed in midair, striking a succession of seals into the sword threads in front of him. Suddenly, divine light wildly flashed, and every sword thread became a net of lightning that surged and launched, covering towards Su Xing. Su Xing fully exerted the purple cloud true star with all his strength, and that purple bird smashed its way up headfirst. In the instant the purple fire bird touched the blue net, an explosion burst forth. Soon after, lights continuously flashed. A purple lotus flower amidst the purple clouds appeared. This budding lotus endlessly whirled in the middle of the net. Countless blue sword threads slashed towards this thing, but they merely swept the lotus flowers surrounding purple clouds into ripples, unexpectedly incapable of approaching in the slightest. When Ancestor Qianli saw this situation, his heart was startled and angered at the same time. His flower essence sword was refined from the best flower water essence, and after adding the blooming water divine thunder, it was considered an extraordinary treasure. The 3 swords split apart, the essence threads linked together. There simply was not anyone who could escape this. With the haste of instant reactions, the sword chant stopped in his hand violently urged onwards. After every sword thread briefly flash a blue light, they unexpectedly again became slightly thinner and longer. Each chi thread became brilliant and dazzling, the thunderlight rumbling. They unexpectedly instantly closed in on the purple spiritual power, cutting the purple spiritual influences to pieces. In a moment, the purple lotus was about to be destroyed. A firefly's light dares to vie with the sun and moon for splendor. Ancestor Qianli was delighted. At this moment, Su Xing chuckled. He abruptly opened his mouth and spat out a water flame. This water flame puffed, and a blue mist of cold light was dispersed, wrapping up the sword threads. The rays of light were dazzling, making people unable to look upon it directly. The purple lotus flowers simultaneously blossomed. The purple clouds were like a blade, cutting off the sword threads inch by inch. Under the encirclement of 2 types of power, The flower water sword threads completely had no way out. Ancestor Qianli immediately sensed the connection between himself and the flying swords was instantly severed, unexpectedly unable to interact in the slightest. He could not help but be enormously shocked. Heavenly water heart flame? Just what is your relationship with Juyueka? 6. Fang Exingu rushed to Bloody Centipede Valley. Each of his and Jing Yanran's star crests flickered, mutually shining in order to withstand the Bloody Centipede Valley's nasty miasma. Raising his head, he saw the duel between Su Xing and Ancestor Qianli. His eyeballs nearly fell out. He had not seen wrong, had he? Su Xing actually battled with this old monster Ancestor Qianli on even ground, even taking up a dominant position. So incredible! Zheng Yanran quivered, and she could not help but praise. Using Su Xing's galaxy stage cultivation to be able to contend against a supercluster cultivator's attacks was at first somewhat beyond reason. Now, the powers in mutual combat were not hard to make the fair-skinned gentleman amazed. His abilities are not bad, but this certainly cannot kill Ancestor Qianli. The corner of different star fair-skinned gentleman Zheng Yanran's lips slightly frowned. She rolled up her sleeves, clenched the jade dragon Misfortune Snow. Cousin, please wait here for a bit. Yanran, are you actually going? Fang Exingu said in amazement. Are you sure? Cousin, relax. He is only a supercluster old monster. Yanran also sees that old fart is annoyed. How could Yanran miss the opportunity to cut him when he is down? Zheng Yanran laughed into her sleeve. Saying nothing more, she turned around and slinked away. Let alone that Zheng Yanran was petite and exquisite, but her skills were strong, carrying a steadfastness and experience in complete disagreement with her age. Fang Exingu gazed at Su Xing, unexpectedly able to contend against a supercluster old monster without relying on a star general, and could not help but be very amazed. However, when he thought that he, too, was a star master, the treasures he wanted nevertheless were funded by Su Xing, leaving his heart helpless. 7. This star duel honestly was man against man, infuriating to death. Truly troublesome. Wu Xiao's unhappy voice resounded. Ancestor Qianli controlled his flying sword to go attack. At this time, because his flower essence sword was broken, he hastily called it back. Su Xing's escape technique activated, and he controlled Heaven Tearing to directly attack. Ancestor Qianli genuinely was nearly insane with anger. Had he ever been completely put into so difficult a situation by a single galaxy cultivator? It was too late for more thought as he controlled the completely blue Jade Rui. The Jade Rui suddenly protected and concentrated slightly to his front. At the same time, he waved his hand, and small seals sprayed in the four directions. In the midst of multicolored light, it became a green light that smashed directly towards Wu Xiao. Compared to Su Xing getting close to him, he evidently took more consideration of the harmed star pilgrim Wu Song. There was an enormous boom, and Wu Xiao coldly laughed. She completely lacked hesitation and attacked the jade seal. Black rays and green light intertwined, but the black chi waned and swelled in between, crushing the multicolored light. The jade seal whooshed, flying to one side, reversing its direction back to ruthlessly pound Ancestor Qianli. Ancestor Qianli was astonished, and his hands hastily formed seals. Only after several seals were struck in quick succession did this make the jade seal shooting towards his defenses gradually stop. However, with this moment's delay, Wu Xiao already arrived in front of him, her jet black sword tip carrying snow appearing right in front of the barrier, slashing downwards. The barrier was abruptly jolted, and Ancestor Qianli only felt a tremendous power come from his front. At once, even his own person wearing the defensive cover was sent flying. However, Ancestor Qianli was worthy of the name of the Blooming Water Sword sex old monster, for he was extremely experienced with battling others. Before he was sent flying, he unexpectedly rushed to shake his sleeve. A Blooming Water Divine Thunder then suddenly shot out, directly launched at Wu Xiao. Wu Xiao's cold as ice and frost beauty hooked on a disdainful smile. When she saw the Blooming Water Divine Thunder that was like a sharp sword hacked down from above, Wu Xiao basically did not have intentions of dodging. On the contrary, she suddenly breathed in, raised her double-headed sword at the blooming water divine thunder above her, and then the noble frost demonic lotus black sword chi sprayed forth. The blooming water divine thunder struck the black sword chi, and immediately, the divine thunder was twisted and wrapped up by this sword chi. The thunderlight on the divine thunder could only moan and flicker a few times. Then, it had been cleanly extinguished. Suddenly, it vanished into thin air. When Ancestor Qianli saw this, his expression was even more unsightly. He had used this blooming water divine thunder at full power without leaving any leeway. Even if it was to handle an ordinary magic weapon, it would still have enough to spare, but he had not expected that the harm star was valiant far beyond his imagination. Looking at the noble frost demonic lotus three gorgeous stars, Ancestor Qianli's heart sunk to a low point. He even thought of fleeing. Wu Song's fame for combat was shocking to the extreme, especially at this time that was already the third phase of the prologue. How could Ancestor Qianli dare confront her? Wu Xiao's figure flashed, seemingly leaning where she was. Huqi, a cool elegance flashed through. In the blink of an eye, she had arrived in front of Ancestor Qianli with another sword attack. Ancestor Qianli's completely blue rui cracked, the mighty power sending Ancestor Qianli's body flying away. Wu Xiao moved, and then she flashed to underneath Ancestor Qianli. The noble frost demonic lotus sword tip flowed like quicksilver, slashing downwards. In an instant, the Ancestor Qianli who was incapable of blocking had been turned into a sandbag repeatedly struck flying. That jade rui honestly was a top-notch defensive magic weapon. Although the aura of dark green light flickered incessantly under the immense ravaging strength of Wu Xiao's three-star weapon, it unexpectedly still had not been broken for the time being. It made Wu Xiao unable to help but lightly exclaim in surprise from her own mouth, but the attack in her hands did not stop in the slightest. One slash after another, she did not stop for a moment. Ancestor Qianli at this moment was greatly afraid in his heart. Being closed in on by the pilgrim, Ancestor Qianli simply completely lacked the power to retaliate. After a dozen or so slashes, the defensive aura that Jade Rui released finally dimmed. The Jade Rui's cracks increasingly grew in number. Ancestor Qianli's heart thudded, directly sinking. A sneer flashed across Ancestor Qianli's face. A figure flashed by, the double-headed sword crisscrossing up and down, the offensive not diminishing. The harm star closed in with every step, not giving him any chances. Ancestor Qianli's face was like ash. He watched as his protection was about to be struck open. He abruptly grit his teeth and pressed something underneath his clothes on his chest. His plan was reckless, to do his utmost against the opponent. Wu Song, do not be savage. Ancestor Qianli used his flying sword to battle Su Xing, and from his chest, he felt out a talisman. This talisman's entire body was of multicolored light, emitting an immortal qi. Sect supreme grade cultivators like supercluster ancestors, when they reached this realm, the magic weapons they were most expert with generally were those that protected their lives while the others were not placed in their view. Furthermore, besides a few special talismans or supreme-grade talismans, those simply were no longer valued, and this talisman of Ancestor Qianli's was supreme-grade based on its appearance. The talisman fragmented. Multicolored light exploded, becoming a haze that enveloped Wu Xiao within. That multicolored light covered her, and Wu Xiao suddenly felt her figure sink, her movements unconsciously greatly slowing. Die! Ancestor Qianli malevolently laughed. He rubbed his hands together, and then he raised them both. A dozen more red flickering and long burning talismans were shot from his hands. They shot straight at the Wu Xiao still being trapped by the multicolored haze. These talismans instantly arrived above Wu Xiao. Under the urging of Ancestor Qianli, they successively exploded. Explosions rumbled continuously without stop. A large expanse of thunderfire appeared, and then it pressed directly downwards, becoming the mouth of a ferocious beast about to swallow Wu Xiao. Just during the time he was satisfied he could kill Wu Xiao, suddenly, he saw the surroundings soar with divine light and propitious vapors. The serene blue steamed, the qi rolled and rolled, This clear drizzle of blue light was like a flowing galaxy that cleanly broke his two supreme grade talismans instantly, multicolored red clouds seal talisman, 2, and desolate fire-devouring beast talisman. 3. Seeing this scene, Ancestor Chinli cried out loudly. Bullying my waifu, you must not want to live anymore? Su Xing shook the miraculous Bodhi tree, abruptly closing in. Heaven Tearing attacked and slashed Ancestor Chinli. A white shadow also pounced out, a claw ripping open. Consecutively receiving 2 heavy attacks, Ancestor Chinli's energy was greatly reduced. Bastard! This ancestor must destroy you. Ancestor Chinli shouted loudly. He again unleashed a blooming water divine thunder, and then he turned around and fled. Just when he turned and ran, he suddenly saw a girl appear in front of him. She wore an ash-gray golden cup chrysanthemum dress, the wide sleeves reaching the ground. Her hand hefted a jade sword, her hair was bundled and was like snow, a frivolous appearance. Different star fair-skinned gentleman Jing Yanran. Seeing the ranked 74th earthly star also dared to obstruct him, strutting around right in front of him, Ancestor Chinli truly had rage written across his whole face. He raised a flying sword to slash at Jing Yanran. The damned star generals can all go die. Jing Yanran lifted her eyelids, as if she had waited for a long time. Her left hand covered her yawn, and her right clutched the jade dragon Misfortune Snow. Her 2 legs slightly parted, a forked stance. Ancestor Qianli arrived in the blink of an eye. Jing Yanran lightly chuckled. Contempt for star generals certainly is not good. Jing Yanran seemingly had a slight bowing movement, naturally as if she was watering a plant. Her hand neither quickly nor slowly raised the straight saber as she held the shaft. In the middle of her lifting her hand, she turned her wrist. Stroking her palm, every one of her movements was clean, so simple they would make others overlook her. Cold light swept over. The saber went out, then it returned. A resounding noise. Ancestor Qianli lowered his head and was already overwhelmed with shock to see his stomach had been ripped apart with a wound. That speed unexpectedly was fast to the point he was unable to see it clearly. Ancestor Qianli was in disbelief. He had seen Jing Yanran step and slowly raise her hand. All of her movements were natural, like a little bird properly soaring in the sky, a fish properly breathing in the water. The supercluster stage's unbroken defenses were ripped open in the blink of an eye. This moment seemed as if water could be sliced apart. Underestimating your servant certainly would lead to suffering? The girl slightly laughed as she informed him. Dark rank saber technique. Saber draw water cutter. The Star General's star magic was dark rank and capable of breaking a supercluster, but his stage could break super void. Although Zheng Yanran's martial force was slightly lacking, due to the protective jade rui having been broken, Zheng Yanran's saber had nearly taken Ancestor Qianli's tiny life. But it was just about there. This saber directly tore apart all of Ancestor Qianli's thoughts. Ancestor Qianli took a step back, just barely a step back. Zheng Yanran was just about to draw her saber. A sword tip ran through Ancestor Qianli's chest from behind, like ink flecked with snow, a penetrating cold light. Hey! Su Xing also rushed forth, the heaven-tearing metal element sword slashing. Even if Ancestor Qianli was the Deluo Golden Immortal at this moment, he could only powerlessly return to heaven. In his shock and astonishment, Ancestor Qianli swayed for a long time before he fell where he was, dying just like that. Zheng Yanran, many thanks? Su Xing nodded towards her, unceremoniously using his sword to prod Ancestor Qianli's corpse and seized his astral bag. This Ancestor Qianli was known as a sect founder, but confronting star generals he was still utterly frail. Shall we divide it together? Su Xing shook the bag. Suddenly he was taken aback. He noticed Jing Yanran currently hung a pondering smile, her gaze completely focused on Wu Xiyo. The harmed star pilgrim Wusong was also engrossed gazing at her. Their eyes faced one another, seeing some kind of thing that was far from encouraging. Waifu? Little sister Yanran, you are not. Su Xing was speechless. Suddenly, at this moment, Fang Xianggu's scream came from behind. Su Xing turned his head and spotted that blood jade centipede brandishing its fangs and claws, wisps of blood wafting in and out. Fang Xangu was somewhat in a difficult situation holding it back, his artifacts being corrupted one after another. When Su Xing saw this, his figure flashed past, raising his flying sword to slash. This blood jade centipede was known as a 5 poisons type. Its soul was something Su Xing also aspired as a must-have. Clang! A deafening loud sound, and Su Xing's metal element flying sword heaven tearing had already stabbed into the blood jade centipede's head portion. Pfft. Bright red bloodlight sprayed into the air. The blood jade centipede spewed blood, and Su Xing's figure fluttered like a pinwheel. Sweeping across, it was firmly kicked away. The blood jade centipede rolled in midair, its frightening red figure already visible as it spouted great swathes of poison blood. Just as Su Xing was about to destroy this blood jade centipede, it was at this moment a figure flashed in front of him. White hair rising, Jing Yanran attacked. The straight saber's blossoming ice-cold saber rays were like an abyss streaking across the blood jade centipede's body. It became modeled on this ugly monster's body, and the saber chi happened to exploit the crack already split open. In an instant, wind pressure squeezed from inside and out, forming the imposing air of a grinding machine. Boom! The blood jade centipede screeched, and Su Xing was blunt. The golden sword fell, ripping the blood jade centipede into pieces. Storing its soul, Su Xing breathed out. "Brother Fang, are you all right?" Fang Xianggu shook his head. He did not know at all that Su Xing had been the purple thunder monster all along, so he had no misgivings whatsoever. On the contrary, he cupped his hands in admiration. Brother Su truly is a master that does not reveal himself. This Fang admires. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.